Chapter 1143. Xianran walked Su Yu to the entrance of the secret chamber. You lost the crane deity's token, and that mansion will be taken back. I will arrange for you to stay in the crane deity's family, Xianran said. Su Yu thought for a while and nodded. Okay, that mansion is not safe. Sensing the hostility from the book deity's cavern world, Su Yu did not dare to be careless. They walked to a deserted place. Xianran stared at Su Yu and said, According to the plan, my brother should have been killed by my furious father. Why did you change your mind and save him at the last moment? Do you have other plans? Su Yu laughed. Miss Xianran, do you really think the crane deity will kill your brother? Xianran thought about it seriously and shook her head. As you said, if my father really wanted to kill him, one divine power is enough to kill him 10 times. He used 2 divine powers in a row, and it was really unbearable. Even if Su Yu did not intervene in the end, the crane deity would find another way to save his life. Well, anyway, after the plan is completed, I can deal with him again. Xianran gave up and turned her head. I hope we can continue to cooperate. Su Yu smiled gently. Of course. Xianran led Su Yu to a house and turned to leave. The moment she turned around, a trace of killing intent appeared on her face. She used to want to kill Su Yu because he knew her secret. Now she wanted to kill Su Yu because he was too scary. Su Yu's eyes flashed, and he entered the house as if nothing had happened. The crane deity could go anywhere in his cavern world. He appeared at the border of the crane deity and the Jing deity, and unexpectedly found the army of the Jing deity's cavern world at the border of the 2 worlds was drilling hard. There is no war at this time. Why is the Jing deity drilling the soldiers? The crane deity glanced around casually and found that more than half of the border between the 2 caverns were occupied by soldiers. With some suspicion in his heart, the crane deity stepped into the Jing deity's cavern world. As the Jing deity, the arrival of another deity undoubtedly alarmed him, and he came to the border with a thought. The 2 stood across the border, facing each other from afar. Although both of them were willing to maintain a superficial relationship, Jing Bai's death had left a crack. Jing deity, the book deity is up to something. The crane deity told him about Boutier's appearance. Of course, according to him, Boutier was instigated by the book deity, and instigated the relationship between the 2 deities. The crane deity would never admit that Xianran had killed Jing Bai. After listening to him, the Jing deity was indifferent and said, The book deity is wandering outside. It should be the book deity's subordinate force, not necessarily the book deity's intention. There was a moment of silence between the 2 of them, and a faintly discernible estrangement formed. The crane deity, of course, knew that the book deity wouldn't use such a petty trick to destroy the connection between him and the Jing deity. He came here because he had something else to say. The carnival of all gods is about to begin, we need to be fully prepared, the crane deity said. The carnival of all gods. The Jing deity's expression became much more solemn. He nodded deeply. I understand. What you and I are about to do is, after all, against the rules of the 100 gods. We cannot leak out the slightest bit of information. The crane deity revealed a smile. The Jing deity glanced at the crane deity, as if he was trying to see through the crane deity's body that was hidden under the white divine radiance. He said worriedly, I'm ready here, but crane deity, can your body hold out until the carnival of all gods? The crane deity's pupils shrank slightly, and he became vigilant. He said with a relaxed smile, It's an old injury, it's nothing. Oh, that's good, the Jing deity said. The crane deity squinted his eyes, trying to find out something from the Jing deity. He glanced at the soldiers at the border subconsciously and said, Jing deity, are you training the soldiers at the border? Are you preparing for war? The Jing deity said calmly, They were mobilized by Su Yu with the divine order. What a joke. Although he said so, what he was thinking was not the case. The Jing deity had always been on guard against the crane deity. How could he not be vigilant since their relationship on the battleship was almost torn apart? However, due to their relationship, it was inconvenient for him to order the defense at the border. In the end, Suyu asked Xianran to come here with the divine order a few days ago, saying that the demons had been running rampant recently, and they had to be on guard at the border of the Alliance continent. Commanding the soldiers to be stationed at the border with the divine order was exactly what the Jing deity wanted. Now that the crane deity had asked about it, he could shift the responsibility to Suyu. The crane deity became even more vigilant, stationing soldiers at the border. Without the Jing deity's approval, could such a big matter be carried out by the divine order? A hint of a sneer emerged in the crane deity's mind. The carnival of all gods was not over yet, and the Jing deity was already prepared to part ways. Wait. The crane deity thought of his own injury, and his heart shuddered. Could it be that these soldiers were not only guarding against the crane deity's cavern world, but also had other plans? All of a sudden, the crane deity was full of doubts, and thought to himself, even though the Jing deity was indifferent to kinship, he loved Jing Bai from the bottom of his heart. Could it be that the Jing deity harbored resentment, and was ready to use force? With this thought, the crane deity became unusually vigilant. However, he was very clear that as long as he was alive, the Jing deity would not dare to send troops to the crane deity's cavern world. Oh, it's Suyu. The crane deity thought for a while, and a hint of viciousness flashed in his eyes. Jing deity, your divine order is a hidden danger with him after all, just take it back. The Jing deity thought for a while, and nodded in agreement without much hesitation. With a move of his mind, a golden token returned to his palm. Seeing that, the crane deity's murderous intent was no longer concealed. Suyu had plotted against him, a dignified deity with an overt scheme. Heaven would not forgive him if he did not die. Sensing the murderous intent, the Jing deity's face was indifferent. He did not care whether Suyu died or not. The two deities looked at each other and went their separate ways. Upon returning to the crane deity's family, the first thing the crane deity did was to search for Suyu. However, the mansion was empty, and Suyu's scent was found in his own family. The crane deity sneered. Did Suyu think that his death in his own family would tarnish the reputation of the crane deity's family, so he would not dare to attack Suyu? Childish. You are just a commoner, even if you die in the deity's mansion, so what? Who will avenge you? The crane deity's murderous intent permeated the air, and descended upon the house abruptly. Suyu, who knew nothing about it, was startled by the sudden appearance of a deity in front of him. He rose to his feet hastily. Greetings, crane deity. The crane deity's whole body was shimmering with white divine light, and Suyu could not see the face that was filled with murderous intent. Suyu, do you have anything to say? The crane deity was eager to know what this ant who had plotted against him had to say before his death. Suyu acted as if he did not know he was facing imminent disaster, and said in surprise, "A deity is a deity, you can even tell that I have something to say. I was just wondering how to contact the crane deity, and something big happened in the family right after you left." What kind of big thing can happen in the deity's family? The crane deity stared at Suyu's performance mockingly. Suyu said, Miss Xianran is dying. Upon hearing that, the crane deity's first reaction was shock. This was really a big thing. His second reaction was rage. His third reaction was overflowing with murderous intent. The divine light on the surface of his body vibrated, and a pair of infuriated eyes could be seen staring at Suyu coldly. You did it. He almost instinctively believed that it was Suyu who did it. Suyu said, I haven't taken a step out of the house since I entered, and the crane deity's people are not very friendly to me, and are watching me everywhere. How could I do it? After calming down for a while, the crane deity eliminated Suyu as a suspect. What would Suyu gain by killing Xianran? Her two brothers, on the other hand, would benefit immensely. Even so, it would not prevent the crane deity from killing Suyu conveniently. Suyu said again, I don't have much, but I am born with an unusual body that can transfer vitality into people. If there is anything I can do, please let me know, Crane Deity." "What?" The Crane Deity glanced at Suyu, and found that his body was filled with vitality, which was unusually vigorous. Generally speaking, the stronger one's cultivation was, the more vigorous his vitality would be, but if he transferred it to others easily, he would be weakened. For someone like Suyu, whose vitality was excessively vigorous, losing some vitality wouldn't affect him at all. After a slight hesitation, the Crane Deity withdrew his murderous intent and said approvingly, "I am very pleased that you have such intentions. Well, come with me to take a look at Xianran." Xianran's condition was very serious. To be precise, she was about to die. Her face was pitch black, and layers of pitch-black liquid were flowing out from her limbs and bones. Her vitality was extremely weak. "Xianran!" The Crane Deity was angry and distressed, and after examining her, his face darkened. The extreme frigid water. The people in front of the bed heard the name of this item, and their expressions changed. The extreme frigid water originated from the Jing deity's cavern world, and could be condensed from the century-old well with extremely dense Yin energy. It contained the extreme Yin energy, and was a fatal poison to mortal fairies. This item was extremely difficult to find in the outside world, and was said to cost 1,000,000 divine coins per drop, but it was usually not available even with money. Everyone was shocked, and they all thought of one person, the Jing deity. Xianran had finally gotten rid of the accusation of killing Jing Bai, and the Jing deity was the most indignant one. Seeing the Crane deity's expression changing, Suyu said, "Don't fall into the trap, Crane deity. If the Jing deity wanted to kill Xianran, why would he leave her alive? I'm afraid someone is framing her, and destroying the relationship between the two deities." The Crane deity snorted secretly. If he didn't know that the Jing deity had stationed troops at the border, he certainly wouldn't believe it was the Jing deity's doing. But after the meeting just now, the Crane deity was 100 times more vigilant towards the Jing deity. After examining Xianran, the Crane deity said, "There's no antidote for the extreme frigid water, unless the Jing deity and the Jing deity's people treat it personally." The people of the Crane deity's family had different expressions. So, Xianran was hopeless? The only way is to use the godly spirit to reconstruct her body and soul, the Crane deity said solemnly. In his heart, he was even more certain that this was the Jing deity's plot. He knew that his godly spirit had shrunk, and it was difficult for him to maintain his godly level cultivation, but he deliberately threw a half-dead daughter to him. Should he save her or not? If he saved her, he would fall into the Jing deity's plot, and his godly spirit would be damaged, and he would lose his godly position. Then, the army at the border would press on, and the Jing deity would attack the Crane deity's cavern world in the name of revenge. If he didn't save her, as a dignified deity, he would become a joke in the world of deities, and be despised by the deities. He really loved Xianran, but it was impossible for him to give up his godly position for his daughter. However, he had to set an example in front of others. "If there's no other way, I'll use my godly spirit." Upon hearing that, the people of the Crane deity's family knelt down in fear. "Crane deity, please take back your order. Crane deity, your godly spirit can't be damaged anymore." The Crane deity was injured by a demonic god in the immortal graveyard during one of his travels, and his godly spirit was almost destroyed. Now, his godly spirit had lost the ability to strengthen itself, and was shrinking day by day. Now, the Crane deity was at the end of his life, and if he used part of his godly spirit to save Xianran, he would lose his godly position. Without a deity, the Crane deity's cavern world would be removed from the Great Eastern Alliance, and soon, it would be banished to the Great Eastern Alliance, drifting alone in the galaxy, and gradually declining. It might even be invaded by the demonic race and completely destroyed. The people pleaded anxiously, and if the Crane deity insisted, they would stop him with their lives. At last it was Su Yu who said, "Crane deity, for the sake of the crane deity's family, please think twice." The crane deity took advantage of the situation. "Sigh, I'm a deity, but I don't even have the power to save my daughter. Since ancient times, it's hard to have both sides at the same time. Crane deity, you don't have to blame yourself," Su Yu said. The crane deity looked sorrowful, sighed silently, and turned to leave. Before he left, he said, "Su Yu, thank you for prolonging Xianran's life. In that case, it was not appropriate to kill Su Yu for the time being. He would kill him after Xianran couldn't hold on any longer." The crane deity thought to himself. Soon, Su Yu was left alone to transfuse vitality into He Xianran. He Xianran opened her weak eyes, and coldness flickered in her eyes. "Humph, my life is not as important as the godly spirit in his eyes." Even though he knew I was plotted against by the Jing deity, he would never fall out with him. "Father, you're in the 3rd year of junior high, don't blame me for letting you down. Everything will go according to plan." He Xianran's eyes flashed with ruthlessness. Su Yu nodded slowly and said indifferently, "The crane deity is determined to kill me, so I can only destroy the deity." Chapter 1144. After transferring a trace of vitality into He Xianran, Su Yu said, "If I'm not wrong, your illness can be delayed for 7 days. After 7 days, you will die." "I know, if I don't die, how can I hide it from my father?" He Xianran said very easily. The extreme frigid water in her body was, of course, real. If she pretended to be poisoned by the extreme frigid water, how could she hide it from her father's eyes? But for the hope of destroying the deity, He Xianran was willing to take this risk. "But I hope you can keep your promise and resurrect me," He Xianran said. Under her calm expression, there was still a deep shock. The only reason why she dared to swallow the extreme frigid water was that even if she died, she could be resurrected by Su Yu. She didn't believe it at first. Could there be such an ability to reverse life and death in this world? Even among the 100 gods, she had never heard of anyone with such an ability until she saw Su Yu resurrect a dead creature with her own eyes. "Don't worry, without your words it will be difficult for me to do it alone," Su Yu said. At this moment, the communication jade pendant on Su Yu's waist shook, and a trace of sound came through. After Su Yu received it, his face was slightly dignified. "What happened?" He Xianran asked. Su Yu shook his head and said, "It has nothing to do with the plan. Some rascals are coveting around my former house." He Xianran breathed a sigh of relief and thought about it. "Don't worry, no one dares to break into the crane deity's house." She didn't want Su Yu to be in danger during this time. After all, it is a hidden danger. At present, during the implementation of the righteous task, nothing can happen. Su Yu shook his head, implying that these people must be eradicated. He Xianran thought for a while and said, "You now have no divine order, and can no longer mobilize the strong people in the crane deity's cavern world to protect you. I will let Dulong and a group of people listen to your arrangements to eliminate the hidden danger as soon as possible. Since you came to the Great Eastern Alliance, you have not offended anyone. They are just some sneaky people, don't worry about it." Su Yu nodded to express his gratitude. But in his heart, he shook his head. "Sneaky people? I'm afraid not." He Xianran was too careless. Not long after, Dulong arrived with 4 strong people of the mortal fairy realm, and was temporarily transferred to Su Yu by He Xianran. Su Yu also gave them instructions in person. With that, Su Yu left the crane deity's family and returned to his mansion. Dulong led the other 4 people to guard Su Yu's vicinity. Su Yu was deep in thought in the house. He vaguely understood the intention of the mastermind behind the scenes in the cavern of the book deity. Su Yu's divine order of the crane deity was forced out, and even the Jing deity's divine order was taken back. Could it be that someone saw through the delicate balance between me and the 2 deities, and that's why they threw Butier out? Su Yu narrowed his eyes as he pondered. He learned that the book deity had a treasure called the book deity's treasury. It was an intelligent treasure that collected information about the world and could analyze the cause and effect of the world. Could it be this thing? Why are the people from the book deity's cavern world targeting me? Suyu pondered. He didn't have any interaction with this world. In fact, he had never even set foot in this world. Hence, he didn't have any deep hatred for this world. All of a sudden, Suyu's heart skipped a beat. Wait, could it be that the book deity's cavern world has found out that I killed the law enforcer Qin Kuo without permission? Butier, Qin Kuo, and Meng Ku all belonged to the book deity's cavern world. If that was the case, it would make sense. Before one wave had subsided, another had arisen. It was extremely difficult to gain a foothold in the Great Eastern Alliance. In that case, the few strong men who coveted the mansion were most likely from the Great Eastern Alliance. As he pondered, Suyu took out a messaging jade pendant and sent a message. Having done that, Suyu sat down cross-legged as if nothing had happened and began to train quietly. It had been some time since he broke through the All Creations Stage 2, and his foundation was already stable. Suyu could try to break through to the All Creations Stage 3 at any time. While his cultivation was steadily advancing, Suyu's training in all aspects did not slack in the slightest. A few months ago, the heavens sun-gazing at air technique was cultivated to the upper class of the illusionary soul realm. He could imitate any of the enemy's magical powers through the power of the soul, including the magical powers of the bloodline of the gods. In a battle, its usefulness was needless to say. After 2 months of training, he was even more adept at using this technique. If this was the case at the upper class realm, Suyu wondered what the effects would be at the top class realm. He was in urgent need of soul power now. If his soul power were to skyrocket again, he would certainly be able to cultivate the illusionary soul realm to the top class. He had ordered people to collect many ways and materials to enhance soul power in the world, at all costs, just to complete the illusionary soul realm as soon as possible. However, the intelligence network that Suyu had built was not extensive enough, and he needed to wait patiently. However, there was another precious technique that Suyu intended to try. With a flip of his palm, he took out a tattered secret scroll, the Dragon Form Technique. This was the secret technique that he had obtained from the second Deputy Region Master of the Heavenly Knife region. This technique transplanted a part of the real dragon's body into the body, and then activated it through a secret technique. Thus, in a short period of time, he could obtain some of the real dragon's power. The power of Qi Ming's dragon transformation was still fresh in Su Yu's memory. This technique had been delayed until today because of the limitations of the cultivation conditions. First, it required a real dragon. The stronger the transplanted real dragon's body, the greater the power after the transformation. Second, it required at least a primordial spirit, which was the cultivation of all creations. In the past, before he reached the all creations realm, Suyu could only look on and lament his inadequacy even with the real dragon spirit scripture. Now, not only did he have the all creations realm, but there were also 9 real dragon spirit scriptures in his body. No, to be precise, there were 10 real dragon spirit scriptures. The last one had condensed a trace of divine dragon blood, and it was the most special one. This meridian had also been refined in Su Yu's body, but he had never activated it. If he used the dragon transformation technique to activate the 10th real dragon spirit vein, the power would be considerable. Opening the scroll, Su Yu quickly entered cultivation. Under the state of time acceleration, he could read 10 lines at a glance. Outside the mansion. Wucho, can we take action now? The cavern world of the demon clan is uncomfortable. A refined young man dressed in a scholar's green robe frowned slightly. The 2 people next to him were dressed in the same way, a man and a woman. They were exceptionally elegant. Wucho was the dark-faced elder under the young master of the book deity's cavern world. Because he was ugly and dark, he was named Wucho. Wucho sighed secretly. The 3 youths of the bamboo garden were the young master's capable assistants, and they would be glorious existences among the divine servants in the future. They were very arrogant, delicate, and pretentious. Along the way, Wucho had been tormented by this group of literate scholars. The earlier he could finish the task, the earlier he could be free. However, Wucho had come from a life of slaughter, and he had only just gained the young master's trust. He said in a low voice, "This is not appropriate. This person was clearly in the crane deity's family. Why did he suddenly come back? I think our existence must have been detected by him." The man and the woman, one painting and the other writing, did not even raise their heads. They said calmly, "Of course he knows of our existence, but so what? I'm afraid he didn't expect that the young master had sent us 4 peak mortal fairies to capture him alive, just to ensure that nothing goes wrong. This is obvious from the 4 followers that he brought out when he was careless." The woman's features were picturesque, and her expression was indifferent. "Wucho, I'm not used to staying here either. The air of the book deity's cavern world is more nourishing. The sooner we capture him, the sooner we can leave." Urged by the 3 youths of the bamboo garden, Wucho was helpless. However, what they said was not without reason. The other party might have been careless. "Let's do it." Wucho made up his mind. The 4 of them entered the mansion silently like phantoms. The 3 mortal fairies guarding the 4 corners of Su Yu's house did not notice the enemy's approach at all. Only Dulong's face changed abruptly and he yelled, "Who dares to cause trouble in the crane deity's cavern world?" Without saying a word, Dulong punched in a certain direction of the void. In an instant, the void was shattered, and an ugly old man with a pitch-black face walked out of it easily. Dulong was shocked. He recognized him immediately and said in a deep voice, "Wucho." The Great Eastern Alliance was huge, but there were only so many famous strong men. Among the peak mortal fairies, Wucho was a very famous strong man. Among all the peak mortal fairies, he ranked about 1,000, which was on par with Dulong. Wucho was also secretly vigilant. He sensed that a peak mortal fairy came to protect Su Yu, but he did not expect it to be Dulong, a famous strong man who was not inferior to him. The book deity's cavern world, very well, you not only assassinated the 3rd miss, but also dared to cause trouble here. Although Dulong was a vicious man, he was loyal to the crane deity's family. Wucho glanced around the house and chuckled. "Dulong, we don't want to kill anyone on this trip. I hope you can do me a favor and let me take this man away." Dulong smiled coldly. Even if the 3rd miss didn't give the order, he would never be indifferent to Wucho's capture under his nose. Puff! Without saying a word, Dulong opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of poisonous fog, which surged around his body. Then, the poisonous fog condensed into a talisman, which crossed the void and branded on Wucho's body. How could Wucho dare to be careless? Boutier almost died in the hands of this man. He dodged with a teleportation and took out a shield as smooth as jade, which was forged by divine bones. The 2 of them immediately exchanged blows, exchanging blows with each other, but neither of them could do anything to the other. After fighting for a while, Dulong realized something was wrong. Wucho defended more than he attacked, and he was not in a hurry. He was in the crane deity's cavern world. If he did not end the battle quickly, once the reinforcements of the crane deity's world arrived, Wucho would not be able to escape. Wucho must be plotting something. All of a sudden, Dulong's face changed and he shouted sternly, "Be careful, the 4 of you, there are other strong men." However, before his voice died away, 3 angry roars came from all around the house, followed by a fierce fight. Then, the souls of 3 mortal fairies escaped one after another. One of them was extinguished by a writing brush in the middle of its escape, and died completely. Dulong was furious, and wanted to turn around and rush over to help, but Wucho turned from offense to defense, and pestered Dulong. "Hee, why are you in such a hurry?" Chapter 1145. Now, it would be a fluke to escape with Su Yu, let alone eliminate the hidden danger. Unfortunately, this fluke was destroyed by Wucho. He took out a book, and words appeared in the book, quickly sealing the poisonous dragon in a fixed space. Literary prison. Wucho laughed weirdly and kept instilling the mortal fairy's strength to entangle the poisonous dragon. The last strong man of the crane deity's family was no match for the three great peak mortal fairies, and his body was shattered immediately. At this point, the three youths of the bamboo garden quickly swept away the obstacles and broke in. To their slight surprise, the movement outside did not make Suyu panic in the house. Instead, he was still calmly practicing on the spot. Catch him first. Although the three felt something was wrong, they were very decisive. The woman with picturesque features waved her brush and drew a rope in the air. Then, the rope turned from a painting into a real object and wrapped itself around Suyu in an instant. No! The woman found that what was trapped by the chain was only a mass of air. This is the bloodline of the crane deity? As peak mortal fairies, they could naturally see Suyu's trajectory and movements clearly. What else could it be if not the bloodline of the crane deity? Could Suyu be the descendant of the crane deity? If so, capturing a deity's descendant in public was too shocking. However, they dared not disobey the young master's order. Can you escape? The leading scholar opened a book and recited eloquently. The saint once said that nothing can be accomplished without rules and regulations, and nothing can be accomplished without rules and regulations. In an instant, an independent world appeared around Suyu, sealing him in it. The verbal compliance law? Suyu was a little surprised by such a strange precious technique. Body of 9 dragons. Suyu had only one way to deal with the seal, which was to break it with force and destroy it with divine decree. A giant palm appeared in the sky and swept down, shaking the seal of the verbal compliance law. Then, Suyu's body of 9 dragons joined forces and bombarded a single point. With a bang, the seal was broken. The person who cast the technique was slightly surprised. Apparently, he did not expect that a mere stage 2 all creations could break his verbal compliance law. The saint once said that the law must be followed by the world, not by one's own desires, but by the law. Suyu, quickly listen to my orders, the leader said. At that moment, Suyu's eyes were filled with confusion. It was as if he was being controlled by someone, and his body was not under his control. However, it only lasted for a brief moment before it returned to normal. What a joke, unless it was a god, who could shake the divine 9-dragon cauldron. The leader's expression changed. He had used 20% of his power when he cast the technique for the second time, and yet he was unable to do anything to an all creations? The sage has said. The leader said with a solemn expression. Before he could finish his sentence, he was interrupted. The gods have said that those who touch the descendants of the gods will be killed without mercy. The expression of the leader, who was in the middle of casting a spell, suddenly changed drastically. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes were filled with shock as he looked behind Suyu. Behind Suyu, a seemingly weak woman walked out slowly. She had a beautiful appearance and was very quiet. At this moment she was calmly looking at them. Seeing this person, the 3 youths of the bamboo garden were shocked. Xing Yuanxin? The 3 of them called out the same name at the same time. Who in the world didn't know the captain of the Sunluo law enforcing team? She was the most powerful descendant of the current deity. Her martial prowess was unparalleled. She had already advanced to the level of prospective deity. It was only a matter of time before she became a god. The leader's heart was thumping wildly. He said, "Greetings, prospective deity Xing." The 3 youths of the bamboo garden, who looked down on everything, had no right to be arrogant in front of Xing Yuanxin. They would be the glorious servants of the deity in the future, and Xing Yuanxin was the deity. "So you told me that you have no respect for the gods. I didn't believe him at first, so I watched quietly from the side. I didn't expect you to really dare to capture the descendants of the deities." Xing Yuanxin looked weak, but what she said made the hearts of the 3 youths of the bamboo garden sink to the bottom. Touching the descendants of the deities was a capital crime. As for whether Su Yu was a descendant of the deities, the crane deity bloodline astronomical phenomenon just now had explained everything. In the name of the captain of the Sunluo Law Enforcing Team, I announce the execution of the law, Xing Yuanxin said. The 3 youths of the bamboo garden didn't even beg for mercy. They turned around and fled. It was useless to plead for mercy to the Sunluo Law Enforcing Team, not to mention the captain, Xing Yuanxin, who was known for being impartial. Xing Yuanxin didn't chase after them. She just took out a long golden whip and lashed it 3 times in the air. 3 puffing sounds came from outside the house. Xing Yuanxin withdrew the golden whip expressionlessly. Su Yu's heart trembled violently. He clearly sensed that the 3 peak mortal fairies had been erased from the world. Not even a trace of their scent was left. Even Su Yu couldn't resurrect them. Looking at Xing Yuanxin's back, Su Yu was stunned. This was the power of a prospective deity. Even if they weren't real deities, they could kill their enemies from thousands of miles away without moving a step. Moreover, their opponents were peak mortal fairies. Su Yu was shocked beyond words when he witnessed a prospective deity in action for the first time. Xing Yuanxin turned around. She still looked weak and delicate, but Su Yu didn't look down on her anymore. He said, "Thank you for your help, Captain Xing." Xing Yuanxin smiled softly. "You don't have to be afraid of me. If you didn't violate the rules of the deities, I can't do anything to you." Su Yu was embarrassed. He didn't just violate the rules of the deities. He was clearly unrepentant. He killed the law enforcers and kidnapped the descendants of the deities. Xing Yuanxin seemed to have just realized that Su Yu had just accomplished a great deed not too long ago, and she looked a little embarrassed. "By the way, you also mentioned in your message that you remembered some important news about Qinque and wanted to report it to me?" Xing Yuanxin asked. Su Yu said, "Exactly. I suddenly remembered that before the relocation of the Jiuzhou continent, there was a rumor that someone found a law enforcer colluding with a peak mortal fairy demon of Jiuzhou." Xing Yuanxin's face was calm. "What was the specific situation?" Su Yu said, "The specific situation is that the demon was being hunted by a powerful expert of Jiuzhou. When he was about to be killed, Qinque suddenly appeared at this time and insisted on bringing the demon back for investigation. The powerful expert didn't allow it, so Qinque attacked him. The creatures of Jiuzhou are spreading rumors that the law enforcers are protecting the demon." Xing Yuanxin listened and started to ponder on the spot. As the captain of the Sunluo law enforcers, she was very sensitive and could see that something was wrong. Firstly, the timing of Qinque's appearance was too coincidental. Secondly, there was something wrong with Qinque's way of handling things. Unless it was a specific demon that needed to be kept alive, he would rarely capture him alive. He would usually kill him on the spot. He insisted on not capturing him alive and stopped the powerful experts of Jiuzhou from killing him. There must be something wrong with this. Thank you. This is very important news. Not only can we find out the cause of Qinque's death, but we can also find out something else, Xing Yuanxin said to Su Yu. As she spoke, she took out another jade pendant. This time, it was not a communication jade pendant but a summoning jade pendant. You are now an important witness of this case, and your life is very precious. If someone is plotting against you, crush the jade pendant, and I will appear immediately. Xing Yuanxin glanced at Dulong, who had escaped, and said calmly, "The people of the book deity were suspected of colluding with the demon race. Now they had sent so many experts to capture Su Yu, who knew the truth. Even the people of the book deity wouldn't believe it if they said that they weren't trying to silence him. Thank you." After sending Xing Yuanxin off, Su Yu looked at the summoning jade pendant in his palm. Su Yu smiled joyfully. He had really made a killing this time. He had gained 2 great benefits. Firstly, he had led Xing Yuanxin to the mastermind of the world of the book deity. "Weren't you plotting against me?" Now I'll give you a headache. Secondly, this summoning jade pendant was a life-saving item. In this world, apart from the deities, how many people could be enemies with Xing Yuanxin? However, after seeing Xing Yuanxin's hidden strength under her delicate appearance, Su Yu didn't intend to use her casually. She was delicate, but that didn't mean she was stupid. At the same time, Su Yu had seen the strength of a prospective deity for the first time. He had to reconsider the deity destruction plan. If the prospective deities were so terrifying, what about the deities? As he pondered, Su Yu entered the soul dimension. He didn't know he didn't see it, but he was shocked when he saw it. Whose cow came to my house? Su Yu cried out involuntarily. In the soul dimension, an incomparably huge creature occupied the soul dimension. It was full of blood and emitted bursts of evil energy. You are the cow, your whole family are cows. I am a dog, no, an evil god. Evil god. Su Yu smiled. It seems you have recovered well. The evil god laughed. It's all because of you, kid. You fed 4 mortal fairy souls in a row. TSK, more than all the souls before. Evil god, I have something to ask you. Su Yu said seriously. If I want to kill a god, and I have a way to completely destroy his celestial energy sphere, is it possible for me to succeed? The evil god smiled and said, Your ideas are really imaginative. I'm not thinking, I'm already doing it, Su Yu said seriously. The evil god's smile froze on his face, and he suddenly became vigilant. You don't want to kill me, do you? Su Yu laughed. The soul dimension is useless to you. Now you are the one who won't leave me, right? As early as when he fought with the Central Prefecture's king, Su Yu noticed that the evil god could penetrate the soul dimension on his own and inject the power of his bloodline into Su Yu's body. He knew that the soul dimension could no longer trap the evil god, and he could move freely a long time ago. Hearing this, the evil god was embarrassed. Well, my doghouse is not easily moved. If I leave, it will be transformed into a tourist attraction by you, the former residence of an evil god. That will not be good. Knowing that Su Yu was not hostile, the evil god said, Destroying the celestial energy sphere is indeed the only way to destroy a god, but that is only for a god. If a god destroys the celestial energy sphere of another god, it means that the god is going to be destroyed. But if it is not a god, it is a suicide mission. Kid, no matter what you are doing now, stop immediately, turn around, and run. Su Yu was surprised. Chapter 1146. Su Yu thought about it and said, Very strong. Wrong. Super strong. And that's because his current divine soul is only 1,000th of what it was when he was alive. Can you deal with a complete divine soul? I'm afraid he can still kill you 10,000 times with just a thought. If you're a deity, it's easy to destroy the divine soul after destroying the godly spirit, but you're a mortal, don't court death, run away quickly. Su Yu was stern and said, I've learned a lot. Leaving the soul dimension, the evil god's anxious voice came from behind, Brat, don't take things too hard. Mr. Su. Dulong said awkwardly. If it wasn't for Xing Yuanxin's sudden appearance, killing the 3 youths of the bamboo garden and scaring Wuchou away, the consequences would be unimaginable. Su Yu opened his eyes and said indifferently, They won't dare to cause trouble for a while, secret, let's go back to the crane deity's family. Seeing He Xianran again, she asked concernedly, How is it? The hidden danger has been eliminated temporarily, it shouldn't affect our plan. Su Yu looked at He Xianran and pondered for a long time, then said, Are you sure you can destroy the crane deity's godly spirit? Yes. He Xianran said affirmatively, Father's godly spirit has reached a critical point, it's much more serious than what the people expected. One time, I accidentally discovered that he had secretly executed all of his god servants. Only then did I know that his source of God was about to collapse. Divine servants were loyal servants who guarded the deity's descendants from the peak mortal fairy period, they were the deity's most trusted people, and they knew the deity's secrets the most. There was a divine servant who foresaw that something was amiss, so he made a backup plan in advance. He recorded the news of the crane deity's godly spirit's imminent collapse into 10 pieces of communication jade pendants, and hid them in different places. If the crane deity wanted to talk about him, he could threaten him with it. Unexpectedly, the crane deity killed all the divine servants in one night, and the 10 pieces of communication jade pendants were all found by the crane deity with his magical power, and then destroyed. But the crane deity didn't expect that the divine servant prepared not 10 pieces, but 11. The divine servant erased the last piece of memory from his mind, so the crane deity wouldn't know there was still a piece of information left in this world even if he searched his soul. Su Yu's heart shook and he asked, "Did you get the communication jade pendant?" He Xianran said proudly, "That's right, that divine servant has been bribed by me for a long time, so before the great calamity befell him, he also prepared a communication jade pendant and gave it to me, hoping that I can help him at the critical moment. Unfortunately, he Xianran didn't help that divine servant. In the past, the time was not right. Now that I have your help, I will definitely succeed," Crane Fairy said. Su Yu stared at He Xianran. She had never mentioned the condition of the crane deity's divine soul, whether it was strong or weak. Being stared at by Su Yu, He Xianran evaded his gaze a little. She said, "Don't worry, this time, the crane deity will surely be killed. Then, according to the promise, I will inherit the position of the head of the crane deity's family. Relying on the divine inheritance left by my father, it will be enough for me to become a deity in a short time. Then, I will give you what you want, and let your status in the crane deity's family cave be second only to mine. In this way, whoever in the entire Great Eastern Alliance who wants to lay a finger on you will have to consider the remaining resources of the crane deity's family first. As a deity's family, before they completely declined, no one would dare to provoke them." She still spoke ambiguously, not mentioning the divine soul at all. Su Yu nodded. "All right. That's it, let's start the plan." If the crane deity wasn't killed, not only would Su Yu not be able to gain a foothold, but even his life wouldn't be guaranteed. This was decided when he first kidnapped He Xianran. The crane deity was heartless, and his desire to kill Su Yu was especially strong. If he didn't die, Su Yu couldn't survive. In order to survive, in order to gain a foothold, in order to protect Jojo, Su Yu had no choice but to put all his eggs in one basket and choose to destroy the deity. 2 days later, He Xianran's injuries worsened. Su Yu's vitality could only prolong her life, but it couldn't heal her injuries. 5 days later, He Xianran was dying. The crane deity showed up to investigate. His eyes were full of sorrow, but he still didn't plan to settle the score with the Jing deity. Although the people of the crane deity's family didn't say anything, all of them felt vexed. A dignified deity's daughter was assassinated, but the deity didn't dare to seek revenge. It wasn't that the crane deity didn't dare, but he didn't want to. The carnival of all gods was just around the corner. Without the Jing deity's help, the crane deity couldn't get the replenishment of his godly spirit and would die soon. So he had to endure it. Although the news that He Xianran was poisoned by the extreme frigid water was concealed by the crane deity's family, the Great Eastern Alliance was full of deities. What could be hidden from them? The Jing deity's mood turned grave when he heard the news. The extreme frigid water certainly wasn't done by him, nor was it done by his people. But the crane deity didn't ask for help for a long time. The Jing deity couldn't help but ponder. Could it be that the crane deity thought it was done by him, so he didn't consider asking for help at all? The Jing deity felt it was more and more possible. If the crane deity asked for help from him, it was enough to show that the crane deity still trusted him. But now that he didn't ask for help, it would be troublesome. At the thought of that, the Jing deity was a little angry. He knew that the crane deity had also raised his vigilance against him. The carnival of all gods was just around the corner. He really didn't want a small misunderstanding to cause a qualitative change in their relationship and delay the carnival of all gods. I have no choice but to take the initiative to lend a helping hand and resolve the misunderstanding. The Jing deity sighed. He took out a bit of the extreme frigid water, handed it to his divine servant, and sent it to the crane deity's family. After a pause, the Jing deity instructed again, "This must be done openly, and let the world know that the relationship between me and the crane deity remains the same." When the crane deity learned that the Jing deity had personally sent the extreme frigid water, and in such a big way, as if he was afraid that others wouldn't know that the Jing deity had lent a helping hand, the crane deity was shocked. Could it be that he had misunderstood the crane deity? Although he didn't understand the reason behind it, the crane deity agreed to it gladly. Not only could he save his daughter, but he could also ease the conflict between him and the Jing deity. Why not? After the Jing deity's divine servant arrived, the news was thoroughly spread among the people. The rascal had plotted against He Xianran and framed the Jing deity. The Jing deity was open and aboveboard and gave the antidote. The happy event of a harmonious relationship between the deities had spread like wildfire among the people. Both parties were delighted. Until He Xianran drank the antidote, not only did the extreme frigid water not dispel, but it became even worse. Although Su Yu tried his best to save her, and operated his vitality to sustain her breath, the extreme frigid water contained in the antidote was even more dreadful. The extreme frigid water came from the Jing deity's bloodline, and no amount of vitality could save her. At last, He Xianran persevered for half a day and passed away. The crane deity was furious. After examining He Xianran's body, his face became even more gloomy. He Xianran's body actually contained the Jing deity's unique extreme frigid water. Apart from the Jing deity himself, only his descendants who had inherited the Jing deity's bloodline could produce this divine water. However, his descendants had never set foot in the crane deity's cavern world, so where did the extreme frigid water in their bloodline come from? Apart from the antidote that was delivered, there was no other solution. The crane deity finally flew into a rage. He thought he had misunderstood the Jing deity, but it turned out that the Jing deity had killed his daughter in public, and deliberately let the whole world know. Now, even if the crane deity wanted to maintain the superficial relationship between the two, it became impossible. The Jing deity had shed all pretense of cordiality, and killed his daughter in public. How could they still cooperate? Their relationship, with He Xianran's jaw-dropping death, had come to an end. Jing deity! The crane deity flew into a rage. He had no choice but to fly into a rage. In front of the whole world, if he didn't react in the slightest, not to mention the damage to his honor, even the slightly smarter deities would discover the crane deity's weak nature. Which one of those sanctimonious gods wasn't someone who would eat people up without spitting out the bones? Once they found out, the crane deity would be in trouble sooner or later. It was not easy to establish a foothold in the Great Eastern Alliance. How could the crane deity not have offended anyone? Once the news got out, he would immediately suffer ruthless retaliation. An invisible force of heaven and earth had pushed him to the teeth of the storm. He had no choice but to retaliate, and he had to retaliate ruthlessly, so that he could show his determination to not fear the Jing deity. Swoosh! The crane deity left angrily in front of He Xianran's body. Half a day later, the crane deity returned, covered in blood, holding a large head in his hand. That was the Jing deity's second son. The Jing deity had a total of 2 sons. One was killed by He Xianran, and there were 2 left. Now the crane deity had killed another one, and there was only 1 left. The crane deity, of course, deliberately announced this news to the world, to let people know that the crane deity was not afraid of the Jing deity. Suddenly, the whole Great Eastern Alliance was in an uproar. The Jing deity killed the crane deity's daughter in public, and the crane deity killed the Jing deity's son in retaliation. Many deities in the whole continent were watching the two quietly. Smack! In the Jing deity's family, the Jing deity flew into a rage. Crane deity, you've gone too far. Think about the price he had paid for forbearance for the sake of great things? Jing Bai was obviously killed by the Crane deity's family, but not only did he pretend to know nothing about it, in order to maintain the relationship between the two, he even saved He Xianran. In the end, the Crane deity used some mysterious means, and actually injected a trace of his bloodline power into He Xianran's body, and framed the Jing deity. It was no wonder that the Jing deity thought so, to imitate the bloodline power, the extreme frigid water, who could do it except the deities? Therefore, he thought, could it be that the Crane deity had something to rely on, and deliberately killed his own daughter, and shed all pretenses of cordiality, so that he could settle the score with him? Thinking of this, the Jing deity suddenly felt that it was also the Crane deity's arrangement that He Xianran was poisoned by the extreme frigid water in the beginning. Considering the development of the incident, the Jing deity was even more certain that this was the Crane deity's plot. The Crane deity must be trying to deal with him. After all, once the conspiracy between them was spread out, it would be a great catastrophe. The Crane deity wanted to silence him. He thought so because the Jing deity also wanted to silence the Crane deity, and after the Carnival of All Gods, he would find a way to kill the Crane deity. Not long after, the Jing deity received a piece of news. Xing Yuanxin appeared in the Crane deity's family. In fact, Xing Yuanxin only received Su Yu's message, and the news of Qin Kuo's death. She came to look for Su Yu. But Su Yu was in the Crane deity's family, of course. She could only enter the Crane deity's family. Chapter 1147. Crane deity. You really found a backer, and you want to kill me? The Jing deity was enraged. Who was Xing Yuanxin? She might not be a prospective deity, but Xing Yuanxin's mother, the Xing deity, was the most powerful deity among the 100 deities in the Great Eastern Alliance. She could make the Great Eastern Alliance tremble with a stomp of her foot. The Xing deity would never cooperate with a low-ranking deity like the Crane deity. However, her daughter, Xing Yuanxin, a prospective deity, was highly possible. After all, if the plan was successful, the prospective deity could gain amazing benefits in the Carnival of All Gods, and stabilize his godly spirit in advance. Thinking that the Crane deity had found such a terrifying backer, the Jing deity was shocked and angry, and hesitated. He really did not want to be an enemy of the Xing deity. However, the Crane deity's arrogance made him unable to swallow his anger. The Crane deity's daughter killed his son. For the sake of the big plan, he tolerated it. The enemy who killed his son was dying. For the sake of the big plan, he was ashamed of his son's spirit in heaven, and helped the enemy. However, the Crane deity was not grateful, but framed him, and used it as an excuse to kill another of his sons. He wanted to kick him out of the big plan. Not only did he kick him out, but he also provoked him on purpose, and wanted to start a war and kill him. The Jing deity was filled with grief and indignation. He felt that he had been extremely benevolent to the Crane deity's family, but the Crane deity was too hateful. Crane deity, you piece of sh*t. At this moment, the divine servant who returned from the Crane deity's family came to report. Jing deity, someone asked me to pass this communication jade pendant to you. The divine servant was uneasy. The Jing deity was in a rage, and he still had the leisure to look at the communication jade pendant? Even if it was the Crane deity's message, he didn't want to hear it. However, he still asked casually, "Who is it?" "Su Yu." "Him?" The Jing deity raised his eyebrows. He had almost forgotten about this brat. He thought the Crane deity had already killed him, and he didn't expect him to still be alive. He didn't have any feelings for Su Yu, nor did he like him. Su Yu had plotted against a deity openly, which made him feel uncomfortable. "How dare you bring a mere mortal's jade pendant in front of me? Get lost." How could the Jing deity talk to an ant like Su Yu? The divine servant clenched his teeth and said, "Su Yu said that if the Jing deity is unwilling to accept it, He should tell the Jing deity that he can help you out of your predicament. Him? The Jing deity sneered. How could a mere mortal resolve the matter between the gods? However, as she thought about how Su Yu was skilled in scheming, even though she was disdainful, she still took the jade communication pendant into her palm and activated it with a cold smile. This jade pendant was an instant communication jade pendant that could communicate through space. He was sneering when his face suddenly stiffened. He heard a soft and weak voice coming from the other side. I didn't expect you to really be able to contact the Jing deity. Oh, Crane deity, I'm Xing Yuanxin. I have something to discuss with you. The journey is long, so I can only communicate with the deities in this way. In a secret chamber of the Crane deity's family, Xing Yuanxin was a little surprised. Su Yu informed her that there was news of a case, but it turned out to be related to Jing Bai. Because Jing Bai had also been to Jiuzhou, and Jing Bai was the Jing deity's son, the Jing deity might know something. Unfortunately, Xing Yuanxin couldn't contact the Jing deity directly. After all, she was just a prospective deity, and there was still a long way to go before the deities. She couldn't meet the Jing deity whenever she wanted to. Su Yu volunteered to contact the Jing deity. As a result, she didn't know what he said to the divine servant of the Jing deity, who was about to go back to report, and he really brought the jade communication pendant to the Jing deity. Xing Yuanxin heard from Yang Tai many times that Su Yu was an extremely intelligent and meticulous person. She didn't believe it at first, but now she believed it a little. The Jing deity was shocked when he heard it was Xing Yuanxin. Wasn't Xing Yuanxin conspiring with the Crane deity? Why did she suddenly come to me? He stopped sneering and said gently, Su Yu is a junior that I think highly of, and I allowed him to contact me at any time. The divine servant below rolled his eyes when he heard that. He just called Su Yu an ant. Oh, I see. Xing Yuanxin rolled her eyes at Su Yu secretly. No wonder he could communicate with the deities. With such a relationship, what's so difficult about it? It seemed like Yang Tai's evaluation still had to be questioned. Niece Yuanxin, what's the matter? The Jing deity was very polite. Xing Yuanxin said, I want to ask Jing deity if you know anything about Jing Bai's trip to Jiuzhou? About this? The Jing deity was disappointed. He had a faint hope that Xing Yuanxin would turn around and give up on the Crane deity, and cooperate with him for the Carnival of All Gods. Oh, Jing Bai was carrying out a mission in that area, and was coincidentally summoned by He Xianran. As for what I know, I don't. The Jing deity said. How could he know what happened at that time? He didn't even know how his son was killed. But Su Yu's voice came from the communication. Crane deity, this is a serious matter, and it may involve several high-ranking deities. Xing Yuanxin was secretly shocked. When she investigated Qin Kuo's case, she did find several high-ranking deities involved in the case. Qin Kuo shielded the demon race, and there was a deity's instruction. How did Su Yu know? Xing Yuanxin looked at Su Yu in surprise. What Yang Tai said was true, this man was extremely smart. Without investigation, he deduced that high-ranking deities were involved. But this sentence was like thunder in the Jing deity's ears. Wait, high-ranking deities? How can there be any high-ranking deities whose son is dead? The only thing is that the Xing deity also participated in the Carnival of All Gods. Is Xing Yuanxin hinting at me? The Jing deity's mind became active. Niece Yuanxin, what are you talking about? I don't quite understand, the Jing deity said tentatively. Xing Yuanxin heard the Jing deity vaguely knew something from his tone. She said sternly, Jing deity, you really know the inside story. This is a serious matter, and I hope Jing deity won't tell anyone about my conversation with you today until the truth comes to light. Otherwise, it will be very dangerous for both you and me. The Jing deity was shocked. It was really the Carnival of All Gods. Wasn't he the one who knew the inside story? He was a little excited, but he pretended to be calm. Niece Yuanxin, you mean, Xing Yuanxin said seriously, about this matter, my mother also knows about it. From now on, I hope Jing deity can cooperate with me. With my mother's protection, you can rest assured and cooperate with me. What? The Jing deity's heart was pounding. Sure enough, the Xing deity was involved in this matter. Moreover, the Xing deity was partial to the Jing deity and hoped that he would cooperate with her daughter. Niece Yuanxin, rest assured, this matter will be known by the heavens, the earth, you, me, and Su Yu. Apart from this, I will not say a word about it. The Jing deity was extremely excited. Xing Yuanxin nodded. How serious was it to cover up the demon race? The deities involved were also very powerful. If they knew in advance that a group of people was investigating them, she was afraid that it would be very dangerous. Okay, please don't make it public for the time being. When it is needed, please help me. My mother will protect you, Xing Yuanxin said. In the future, she would need witnesses to expose those deities. The Jing deity's fearlessness really touched Xing Yuanxin. She secretly thought that the Jing deity was said to be cold and heartless. It turned out that he was such a selfless person. The Jing deity laughed. Rest assured, when the time comes, I will definitely lend niece Yuanxin a helping hand. After hesitating for a moment, the Jing deity's eyes revealed a hint of ruthlessness. Then, what if someone obstructs us and wants to expose this matter and endanger our safety? Xing Yuanxin was shocked. She said, "Kill without mercy. This matter is very serious, it must not be leaked." Upon hearing this, the Jing deity was greatly relieved. The Xing deity had given up on the crane deity. That's all for now. Please destroy the communication jade pendant immediately to prevent others from knowing about it, Xing Yuanxin said at last. Then, she crushed the communication jade pendant in her hand with a solemn look. The Jing deity put down the communication jade pendant and destroyed it immediately. He praised with a smile, "As expected of the Xing deity's daughter, you are very quick-witted." The divine servant was dumbfounded. What did Su Yu give the Jing deity that made the Jing deity, who wanted to eat people just now, become like this? Ha ha ha! The Jing deity stood up and laughed heartily. Crane deity, oh crane deity! I bet you didn't even dream that the Xing deity chose me. And you, I have tolerated you for a long time. The divine servant's face changed slightly. Jing deity, what are you going to do? The Jing deity sneered. To avenge my son, of course. Jing Bai is a nobody, but my second son was killed by the crane deity and announced to the world. If I don't avenge him, won't I become a laughing stock? Moreover, the Xing deity had instructed him to eliminate the hidden danger, the crane deity, to prevent the news from leaking. What else did he have to fear? With a thought, the Jing deity appeared at the border of the two regions. He glanced at the army in the Jing deity's cavern world, who was training. He thought to himself, this Su Yu is quite good at handling affairs. Listen to my command, the crane deity killed the descendants of our deities. All troops, follow me into the crane deity's cavern world to seek justice. In the crane deity's world, the crane deity was on tenterhooks. He killed the Jing deity's second son, which deterred some deities who had ulterior motives. But what about the Jing deity? He really didn't want to confront the Jing deity head-on. Therefore, he only killed his son, not the Jing deity. I hope the Jing deity knows when to advance and when to retreat. Otherwise, I will have to fight. The crane deity was pacing when an urgent message from the border arrived. The Jing deity led the army and entered the territory. Crack! The crane deity smashed the stone table in front of him. Divine light flickered and he was extremely furious. As expected. He arranged the army at the border just for this day. The crane deity laughed miserably. Jing deity, oh Jing deity, why are you treating me like this? At first, the crane deity secretly hurt Xianran to infuriate him. For the sake of the big plan, the crane deity endured it. Even though he felt sorry for his daughter, he gritted his teeth and endured it. Then, he murdered her openly in front of the whole world, forcing him to resist. He had to kill the Jing deity's son to take revenge. In the end, the Jing deity used this as an excuse to attack the Crane deity's cavern world. Jing deity, oh Jing deity! I can even sacrifice my daughter, but you have to force me to this point. Are you trying to kill me? The Crane deity showed a ferocious and hateful expression and bellowed, "Pass down my order, the soldiers in the Crane deity's cavern world, follow me to fight." Under everyone's gaze, an all-out war broke out in the two great deities' cavern worlds as expected. The Jing deity came prepared, the Crane deity fought in haste, and the army retreated step by step. Within 2 months, the Jing deity was about to attack the Crane deity's family. For a moment, everyone in the Crane deity's family felt insecure and perturbed. Only Suyu, the instigator of all this, was practicing the dragon form technique leisurely. Chapter 1148. Outside the secret chamber, Dulong stood up and said, "Mr. Su, the battlefield is dangerous, let me keep you safe." Suyu nodded. Dulong followed behind Suyu, a strange light flashed in the depths of his eyes. The Crane deity stood in the sky, his eyes full of grief and indignation. The Jing deity was ruthless and merciless. Now, the two armies were facing each other outside the Crane deity's family, and the Crane deity had no way out. Looking at the leisurely Jing deity from afar, the Crane deity said with grief and indignation, "Jing deity, do you really want to be so cruel?" The Jing deity sneered, "Am I not learning from you? Since you are the third, why don't I be the 15th? The Jing deity mistakenly thought that the Crane deity was using the power of the Saint deity to kill him, but now he was using the power of the Saint deity to kill him. But the Crane deity thought that he had killed the Jing deity's son, and the Jing deity was seeking revenge because of that. The Crane deity was even more furious when he mentioned it. It was clearly an overt plot, but the villain was the one who brought it up first. At this point, the Crane deity had no more hope. "Jing deity, you will pay the price for killing me." The Jing deity was a little hesitant. As a fellow deity, it was not a little difficult to kill him. Suddenly, the Jing deity caught a glimpse of Suyu, who was above the Crane deity's family, and the other party cast a cold glance at him. The Jing deity glanced around and did not see Xing Yuanxin. He thought to himself, could Suyu be sent by Xing Yuanxin to supervise? After all, Xing Yuanxin had allied with the Jing deity in front of Suyu. Without hesitation, the Jing deity sneered, "How long do you think you can jump around?" With the Saint deity's will, even if the Jing deity did not attack, other deities would kill him. "Come on then!" the Crane deity yelled. He had no way out, and could only clench his teeth and charge forward. The Jing deity dared not be careless, and used all his strength. The divine power emitted by the two deities shook the two cavern worlds as if they were on the verge of collapse. The heaven and earth changed colors, as if the world was about to shatter. The infinite divine power suppressed the creatures of the two worlds. The apocalyptic sense of panic surged in everyone's heart. However, this feeling only lasted for a while, and a tragic cry was heard, and the entire Crane deity's cavern world was raining golden blood. That was the Crane deity's blood. The Crane deity perished, his godly position crumbled, and his body transformed into a rain of blood that descended upon the Crane deity's cavern world. The whole world was filled with great sorrow, and the light of the world suddenly dimmed. This was the sign of a cavern world beginning to decline. In the sky, the Jing deity's figure appeared, and there was a hint of surprise on his face. He had expected that he would have a great battle with the Crane deity, but the reality was that the Crane deity couldn't even withstand a single blow from him, and more than half of his divine body was directly shattered. Looking at the rain of God's blood falling from the sky, the Jing deity said in a daze, "The divinity is so weak? Wasn't the Crane deity too weak when he was alive?" Suyu looked at the rain of divine blood. He didn't even have the mood to collect the divine blood. The divine blood was too weak. As expected, the Crane deity was already a spent force. Next, it was up to He Xianran. The crane deity's spirit carried a ball of God Source and fled back to the forbidden area of the crane deity's family, the crane deity's secret cultivation chamber. The secret chamber was filled with multicolored divine objects. Those were collected by the crane deity over the years, and were used to replenish his God Source. After replenishing some divine objects, the crane deity's God Source strengthened a little, and was barely preserved. As long as he recuperated and strengthened his God Source, he could condense a divine body again. Jing deity, I want you to die a horrible death. The crane deity took a deep breath, and his whole body trembled. All of a sudden, the crane deity's face changed. The God Source in his arms became unstable rapidly, and gradually turned from golden to pitch black, and finally exploded with a bang. His last trace of God Source was destroyed. Losing the God Source was equivalent to losing the position of a deity, and he could never become a deity again. Who is it? The crane deity went berserk, and his divine soul's face was hideous, as if it was about to devour someone. He looked at the divine objects that he had eaten abruptly, and among them was half of a divine herb. Wisps of white scent remained on the divine herb, which was odorless and tasteless, and could hardly be detected even if he sensed it carefully. Moreover, he was in a panic just now, and had only taken a cursory glance. The god-destroying poison of the poison deity? The crane deity's face was as gloomy as water. Apart from the divine servants, nobody knew the way to open his secret chamber, not even the people closest to him. However, the divine servants were killed by him. Who else knew the way to enter the secret chamber? With a creak, the secret chamber was opened from the outside, and a familiar figure walked in. Father, how does the god-destroying poison taste? The dead He Xianran appeared in front of Suyu. The crane deity's face changed dramatically. No, impossible, how did you come back to life? A deity's descendant couldn't sign a deity's contract. Death was death, and there was no possibility of resurrection. Father, you're very disappointed, aren't you? He Xianran sneered. The crane deity said, Xianran, did you put this poison? Of course, you've been keeping an eye on the people, and you'll know immediately if anyone approaches the secret chamber. However, I'm already dead, and you didn't pay attention to me, so I could enter your secret chamber and leave the poison on your most precious divine object. This was the reason why He Xianran had to die once, not only to ignite the conflict between the two deities, but also to avoid the crane deity's arrow. The crane deity was a mean and heartless person, and never trusted his own people. Everyone was under his surveillance, including his most beloved daughter, He Xianran. The crane deity's face revealed a stern expression. I've been so good to you, and you, good? You're only good to yourself, aren't you? You can give up anything for the godly spirit. He Xianran interrupted him mercilessly, and took out a black palm-sized furnace with a flip of her palm, and said with a cold smile, Father, I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. The crane deity's face changed dramatically when he saw the jade bottle. The demon clan's treasure, the soul-refining furnace? You want to refine my divine soul into a tonic to help you become a deity? The soul-refining furnace was an extremely rare treasure of the demon clan. It could refine the souls of all living creatures in the world, and refine them into precious soul liquid. The higher the level of the soul, the more powerful the soul liquid. After swallowing it, one could obtain everything that the soul had when it was alive, including its lifetime comprehension. Especially if they had the same bloodline, the effect of the soul liquid would be more powerful. If He Xianran swallowed the divine liquid refined by his divine soul, she would inherit his divine path. As long as there were no accidents along the way, becoming a deity was only a matter of time. In order to get your divine soul, I used Suyu to find ways to destroy your body. I'm afraid he still doesn't know the magical effect of the divine soul, does he? He Xianran licked her lips. The crane deity smiled sadly. Suyu, he had long felt that there was a mastermind behind everything, but he didn't expect it to be Su Yu. So, the battle between me and the Jing deity was all planned by him? He Xianran nodded. Yes, it was him. Speaking of which, I really admire him. Who would have thought that the plan with less than a 10% success rate could really succeed according to his calculations step by step? He is really a terrible person. Su Yu, Su Yu. The crane deity was full of remorse. He had long felt that this person was a threat, and had tried to kill him several times, but it was delayed every time. He didn't expect that he would end up in this state because of him. Su Yu. The crane deity hated him to the core. But he hated his daughter even more. After all, without He Xianran's betrayal, how could an outsider like Su Yu plan the overall situation? Besides, it was his daughter who killed him in the end. Sigh, father, the last thing you should have done was to make an enemy of Su Yu. He Xianran sighed and opened the soul-refining furnace. The crane deity wanted to avoid it, but the soul-refining furnace was specially prepared for souls. The crane deity had nowhere to run and was sucked into the furnace. In despair, the crane deity roared ferociously, "My good daughter, you won't have a good ending either. Su Yu is such a dangerous person, you can't control him." I know. He Xianran stroked the hair near her ears, and revealed a soul-stirring, cold smile. So, I've killed him, and Dulong, who followed him and protected him, is already here with his dead body. Bang! However, right at this moment, the door of the secret chamber was opened, and a dead body was thrown in. Who else could it be but Dulong? Dulong? He Xianran's beautiful face changed. Impossible, how could Su Yu kill Dulong? Besides, apart from Dulong, I also arranged for the strong men of the family to receive him. Even if Dulong couldn't be killed, there would be other strong men to kill him. Why didn't they send a message to us when Dulong was dead? Thump, thump. 2 slightly heavy and clumsy footsteps were heard, along with a cold sneer. Because, it's the young master of the crane deity's family who ordered them. How dare they disobey the young master's order? There were only 2 young masters of the crane deity's family. He Jinghong was still imprisoned. Under He Xianran's special care, his cultivation was destroyed, and he was reduced to a useless person. The remaining one who could kill Dulong and command the crane deity's family was only He Rushu. He Rushu, the most useless and despised second young master of the crane deity's family. He Xianran looked incredulous. Why did you do that? Haha, of course, I asked him to do that. A light laugh came from outside the house. He Xianran's delicate body trembled violently, and her eyes were full of panic, as if the initiator of her plot had been seen through. You already knew that I sent Dulong to kill you? Of course I knew, he could even kill his father, let alone an outsider like me. I don't think Miss Xianran is a soft-hearted person, Su Yu said lightly. He Xianran stared at Dulong's dead body. I don't believe it, who could kill Dulong? Even my eldest brother is much weaker than him. Could it be that you have colluded with others? Why do you need to collude with others? Your second brother could easily kill Dulong, couldn't he? Su Yu showed a pitiful smile. What? Second brother? He Xianran looked incredulous. Impossible, his strength is weaker than mine. The next moment, He Xianran's voice stopped abruptly, because He Rushu released the aura of the peak mortal fairy. Chapter 1149. In fact, the crane deity had another son with excellent qualifications. Unfortunately, he died one day outside, and the reason was still unknown. Only He Rushu knew it was done by his elder brother and sister. Because of this, the crane deity knew it was them, but he did not investigate further, and it became an unsolved case. Therefore, He Rushu endured, pretended to be stupid, and hid his cultivation all the time, just to save his life. Until Su Yu appeared and gave him this opportunity to show himself. He Xianran was shocked. It turned out that the trash of the crane deity's family was the most outstanding person. She fixed her eyes on Suyu. You knew my second brother hid a very strong cultivation? Suyu nodded his head. Yes, when he passed me the note that day, I knew it. He didn't attract the attention of the 4-peak mortal fairy guards. Then, he passed the note to me quietly. I knew your second brother was a hidden strong man in the world. I am afraid there are few peak mortal fairies who can compete with him. Unfortunately, he is the most worthy successor of the crane deity's family. Xianran failed to plot against Suyu, and was plotted against by Suyu. Suyu would not let her go. Xianran's eyes flashed, and she said, Second brother, the fight for the position of God is between you and me. Why do you want to help Suyu? Kill him, and only you and I will be left. However, Hirushu did not move, but just sneered. It is very simple. Suyu has made a plan with me to help me become the new generation of crane deity. That is why I am helping him. What a joke. What qualification does he have to help you become the crane deity? Xianran sneered. Suyu did not speak, but released the breath in the 9 jade spiritual pearl. A trace of deity's breath suddenly came, and at the same time, the elegant voice of a reserved goddess came. I guarantee it, how about it? Xianran felt the breath and gasped. Deity? You have a deity by your side. No wonder Hirushu believed him. With a living deity, anything was possible. The crane deity's family will fall sooner or later without a deity, but with Suyu and that deity guarding, I believe the rascals will not dare to disturb. Give me enough time. How difficult will it be to become a god? Hirushu was very confident. Xianran was not willing to give up, and continued to sow discord. You are silly. In that case, wouldn't you become a puppet under Suyu's control? There's no guarantee that he won't go back on his word and kill you. Hirushu said indifferently, so what if it's a puppet? He needs to attach himself to the crane deity's family, and I need to rely on his strength to slowly become a deity. Even if I become a deity, I won't be able to pose a threat to him. It's beneficial for both sides to cooperate, and there's no contradiction or conflict. In just a few words, he had clearly stated the interests of both parties. His mind was exceptionally intelligent. Looking at his sister in front of him, Hirushu extended a finger and tapped the space between her brows. He then said calmly, What you said to our father wasn't wrong. You shouldn't make Suyu your enemy. Originally, the person he wanted to support was you, but your ambition was too great, so he gave me a chance. Rest in peace, sister. Don't try to be smart in your next life. Pucci. A wisp of mortal fairy's strength pierced through Xianran's body and soul, killing her instantly. Hirushu grabbed the soul-refining furnace and said with a complicated expression, Father, don't you have anything to say? You've seen the situation outside, haven't you? In the soul-refining furnace, the crane deity's bitter laughter came after a long time. What are you talking about? The daughter I loved the most betrayed me, and the son I despised the most is so outstanding. I was blind, what else can I say? Now that things had come to this, nobody would let go of the crane deity. Rushu, activate the soul-refining furnace. I'll give you everything I have. I hope you can become a deity, and the crane deity's family is in your hands. A dying man's words were kind. However, Hirushu shook his head. The inherited deity's position is too weak. Even if I become a deity, my strength will be far beyond that of a deity who became a deity independently. You were the weakest among the 100 deities. If I inherit your position, my strength will only be weaker, and that's not what I want. I'll find my own divine path. The crane deity was surprised. He had never thought that his son, whom he had never loved, would be so ambitious to become a deity independently. Among the 100 deities today, how many of them became deities independently? Most of them inherited the deity's position from their ancestors. Haha, my son is so ambitious, I have no regrets even if I die. The crane deity heaved a sigh of relief. After a moment of silence, The crane deity looked at Su Yu and said, "Can you really assist my son wholeheartedly? Won't you have ulterior motives?" He had fallen from the deity's position, and the crane deity's family was in danger. Only Su Yu and the deity behind him could protect the crane deity's family. Now, he was the one asking Su Yu for help. "What good will it do me if I have ulterior motives? Can I, a human, take over the crane deity's family of the demon race? Even if you agree, will the people of the crane deity's family agree? Will the creatures of the cavern world agree? I'll leave the crane deity's family sooner or later." Upon hearing that, the crane deity fell silent. Indeed, as a human, Su Yu couldn't seize the crane deity's family. Then, how could Su Yu assist his only promising son, Hirushu, with peace of mind? After a moment of contemplation, the crane deity's voice was firm, as if he had made some kind of decision. "Fine, give my assistant a hand then." An extremely strong will was emitted from the soul-refining furnace. That was the will of a deity. Even the soul-refining furnace couldn't withstand it. The will rushed out of the crane deity's family and descended into the crane deity's cavern world. All the creatures that belonged to the crane deity's cavern world prostrated and trembled under this will, worshipping respectfully, their hearts filled with grief. Heaven and earth, mountains and rivers, all emitted a sorrowful aura, all looking up at the heavens in the unseen world. "My last will, firstly, the second son, Hirushu, shall inherit the position of the crane deity's family master, and all the people of the family shall assist Hirushu. Secondly, Su Yu shall be the regent of the cavern world, and take charge of everything on my behalf. From the lowly ants to the descendants of the deity, all shall obey my orders. I shall bestow upon him the divine name, Feathered Deity. This is my last will. Those who disobey shall bear the curse of the deity and be consigned to eternal damnation." In an instant, the will was divided into billions of parts and submerged into the bodies of every living creature. Imperceptibly, they seemed to have an invisible shackle, and once they disobeyed, they would suffer a backlash. The Jing deity felt the will and was secretly surprised. Is the crane deity crazy? Why let Su Yu take charge of the cavern world on his behalf and become a substitute deity? Putting aside the crane deity's hatred for Su Yu, handing the entire cavern world to an outsider wasn't right. However, the Jing deity didn't stop it. After all, it wasn't a bad thing for the cavern world to fall into the hands of his own people. The creatures of the cavern world worshipped together and obeyed the will of the deity. Even the experts of the crane deity's family prostrated and worshipped after the shock, not daring to disobey. In this way, Su Yu became the nominal and actual deity of the crane deity's cavern world. Feathered Deity. Su Yu stood in the same place, looking calm, but his heart was in turmoil. After staring at the soul-refining furnace for a long time, Su Yu sighed deeply. The crane deity is so bold. With the will of the crane deity, how could Su Yu simply assist Hirushu? Obviously, he had become a substitute deity, which was equivalent to handing over the entire cavern world to Su Yu. The intention of this move was also the crane deity's good intention. Now, in the world, only Su Yu and the deity behind him could protect the crane deity's cavern world. Therefore, he wanted to give Su Yu a title and bind him. If the crane deity's cavern world was in trouble in the future, could the feathered deity, as a substitute deity, stay out of it? The answer was no. When Su Yu reaped great rewards, he also received corresponding responsibilities. The enemies of the crane deity's family would certainly see Su Yu as a thorn in their side, and these enemies would be transferred to Su Yu. It was hard to say whether he would gain or lose. "Alright, this is all I can do for you. Activate the soul-refining furnace, and you can make an expert out of the refined soul liquid. Although the hope of becoming a deity without my bloodline is slim, it won't be difficult for you to cultivate to the peak of the mortal fairy in the future." However, to the crane deity's surprise, he asked, "Why should I kill you? You want to let me go?" The crane deity was surprised. Su Yu shook his head. A divine soul was too powerful for Su Yu to control. You can live in another form. What form? Artifact spirit. The crane deity fell silent and said resolutely, "Forgive me, I can't promise you that. If I am an artifact spirit that will never be free, I might as well die here. When my strength grows to the point where you can't touch me anymore, I can let you go," Su Yu said. The crane deity still shook his head. "Haha, I'm a deity after all. How can I face being reduced to the weapon spirit of an immortal artifact?" "I'm talking about an emperor-based saint artifact," Su Yu said calmly. The crane deity was taken aback. "You have an emperor-based saint artifact?" There was once a deity's soul that volunteered to become the soul of a replica of an emperor-based saint weapon, hoping that one day when the replica was upgraded to a real emperor-based saint weapon, the divine soul would be nourished and become a deity of a higher level. However, for a replica to become a real one, alas. "I meant it literally," Su Yu said calmly. The crane deity was taken aback. "Are you talking about a genuine emperor-based saint artifact? What do you think?" Su Yu asked. Hirushu looked at the two of them, then left tactfully. He didn't think it was a good idea to stay here and look at Su Yu's emperor-based saint artifact. However, knowing that Su Yu had an emperor-based saint artifact still shocked Hirushu. There were only 10 emperor-based saint weapons in the alliance of 100 gods. Shwar starlight swirled around Su Yu's right palm, emitting a brilliant Milky Way radiance. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The soul refining furnace vibrated abruptly. The crane deity inside said in an excited and horrified voice, "Emperor-based saint artifact, Milky Way star sand. The 21st Emperor-based saint artifact." "Yes, do you want to be an artifact spirit?" "I do. Let me be an artifact spirit." Before the crane deity answered, the excited voice of the tree goddess came from the 9 jade spiritual pearl. "I can warm your bed and give birth to little monkeys for you. Please let me be an artifact spirit." Su Yu's mouth twitched. "Get lost. I am a goddess. Warming your bed and giving birth to little monkeys for you. Isn't that enough to satisfy a man's sense of conquest? Are you proud of being a bandit leader?" Of course, he didn't think the tree goddess really wanted to be an artifact spirit. Only a divine soul that had lost its divine position would choose to be an artifact spirit. However, their choice was usually only a top-grade fairy artifact. Those who were lucky would choose an emperor-based saint artifact. The day before yesterday, 6 repetitive chapters appeared on the internet. After discussing with the editor, we decided to revise some of the chapters. In this way, the readers who have subscribed to the repetitive chapters don't worry, because I have filled in the new content of today's update in the 6 repetitive chapters. Since you have subscribed, you don't need to spend extra money to read the next 6 chapters starting from chapter 1145. This is the website's protection for the interests of the original readers. The readers who have bought the book can read the 6 chapters for free. However, after the revision, the readers who have bought the book might not be able to read the 6 chapters. This is because of the cell phone's cache. I have revised the 6 chapters, but you can't read it. There are 2 ways to solve this. The first is to clear the cell phone's cache. After that, you can log in to QQ or read it on your reader. The second way is to delete the Divine 9 Dragon Cauldron from the bookshelf if you don't know how to clear the cache. Then, you can download the book again. Then, you can read the updated chapters. Chapter 1150. The day before yesterday, there were 6 repetitive chapters on the internet. After discussing with the editor, we decided to revise some of the chapters. In this way, the readers who have subscribed to the repetitive chapters don't have to worry, because I have filled the 6 repetitive chapters with today's new content. Since you have already subscribed, you don't need to spend extra money to read the next 6 chapters starting from chapter 1145. This is to protect the interests of the original readers. Those who have purchased the book can read the 6 chapters for free. However, those who have purchased the book might not be able to read the 6 chapters after the revision. This is because of the cell phone's cache. You can't read it after I revised it. There are 2 ways to solve this. The first is to clear the cell phone's cache. After that, you can log into QQ or a reader to read it. The second is to delete the Divine 9 Dragon Cauldron from the bookshelf if you don't know how to clear the cache. Then, you can download the book again, and you will see the updated chapters. Dear readers, please tell each other when you see it. If those who have purchased the repetitive chapters still can't read the updated content, please contact me in the book review section. I will answer them one by one. I promise you won't waste your money. Below is the text. It was really a great achievement to get an Emperor-based saint artifact. It was not difficult to recover his godly spirit after thousands of years of nourishment with the power of the Emperor-based saint artifact. Besides, if the grade of the Emperor-based saint artifact was not low, he could step into a higher level of deity. As a dying deity, it was not easy for the crane deity to find a replica of the Emperor-based saint artifact as the artifact spirit, let alone a real one, not to mention the one ranked 21st. In the Great Eastern Continent Alliance, the highest grade of the Emperor-based saint artifact was ranked more than 1,000. The crane deity didn't even dare to think about ranking 21st. I'm willing. The crane deity agreed immediately. His voice was filled with ecstasy. His resentment towards Su Yu vanished instantly. This was 100 times better than his situation when he was at the end of his rope. Su Yu nodded. He opened the soul refining furnace and released the crane deity. Then, he opened the Milky Way star sand and let the divine soul of the crane deity enter it. With the addition of a soul, Su Yu felt the Milky Way star sand was more spiritual. Su Yu, Master. The crane deity was a little embarrassed as he had just become an artifact spirit. I need 2 months to integrate myself into the sacred artifact, so that I can become a real artifact spirit. Su Yu nodded. Master, there seems to be some sort of restriction within the saint artifact. After a while, the crane deity said, if you don't break the restriction, I'm afraid you won't be able to refine this Emperor-based saint artifact, and if it's seized by the enemy, it'll belong to someone else. Su Yu said, yes, I know. I need to meet someone. When Tianjizi had given the Milky Way star sand to Su Yu, he had stated 2 conditions. First, kill Blood Emperor. This mission had been completed. The second was to inform Yun Xia Xianzi of her last words. There was no rosy cloud fairy in Jiuzhou. The only possibility was the Great Eastern Alliance. Su Yu had inquired about this person, but there was no such person. At least, Yun Xia Fairy's reputation in the Great Eastern Alliance was not too great. After thinking for a moment, Su Yu asked, have you heard of a person called Rosy Cloud Fairy? Crane deity pondered. No, if she is famous, I should know her. Su Yu was not disappointed. He nodded and said, all right, be patient and become the holy artifact's holy spirit. All of a sudden, Su Yu sensed the Jing deity's aura. Is there any important connection between you and the Jing deity? Upon hearing that, the crane deity's expression was complicated. Now that things had come to this, there was nothing to hide. He told Su Yu about the Carnival of All Gods. The Carnival of All Gods? Hearing that, Su Yu felt the crane deity and the Jing deity were really audacious. However, Su Yu's eyes lit up. Ha ha ha, feather deity, congratulations! The Jing deity arrived with a smile. He couldn't figure out what means Su Yu had used to force the crane deity to convey such a will. Su Yu smiled. Jing deity, you must be joking. I'm just a substitute deity. Haha, don't be modest. Xing Yuanxin took a fancy to you, which means you're outstanding. The Jing deity's words were 70 to 80% sincere. From an outsider without any foundation, he had become a substitute deity. The change was really earth-shattering. At the mention of Xing Yuanxin, Su Yu knew the Jing deity's purpose for coming. I believe that Miss Yuanxin is well prepared for the carnival of all gods. We're just waiting for the right time. The Jing deity was completely relieved to hear this. He glanced around and said with a smile, "Yes, this is not a good thing to talk about. We have a tacit understanding. Please tell Xing Yuanxin that I am ready." Su Yu nodded and chatted with him for a while. Then, the Jing deity led the army and left. Soon, the news spread in the two-cavern world. The Feather God and the Jing deity secretly reached an agreement. The Jing deity retreated without any conditions and did not ask for any resources. The Jing deity came in a threatening manner, but he left just like that. It really caused a lot of discussion. Not long after, news came from the Jing deity's side. The Jing deity had a face-to-face meeting with Su Yu and was very impressed by him. He also confirmed Su Yu's identity as the reincarnation of the 9 dragons. These words were said by the Jing deity himself. There was no way to refute it. The huge waves of shock and astonishment swiftly spread throughout the entire Eastern Divine region. Yang Tai's intelligence network covered the entire continent, so he was shocked speechless when he heard the news. After reading the thick pile of materials, Yang Tai paced back and forth in the room with a complicated expression. "Young master, this old servant is willing to share your worries." Yang Tai snorted angrily, "Share my worries? Don't tell me you can ease the relationship between me and Su Yu?" "Su Yu?" The old man blinked his eyes. "What happened to Su Yu? What happened?" Yang Tai let out a long sigh. He became a deity. The old man opened his mouth abruptly, as if he had heard a fairy tale. "Young master, you must be joking. The last time I saw him, he was just a stage 1 all-creation deity." Yang Tai said with a smile, "Cultivation is nothing. The current Feather God is the leader of the Crane deity's family. Alas! What a great scheme! What an unpredictable scheme! First, he killed a deity, then he became a deity. He didn't just gain a foothold here. In the future, when we meet him, we will have to call him Feather God." Yang Tai's mood was quite complicated. In the eyes of outsiders, the battle between the Crane deity and the Jing deity was quite reasonable. After all, both of them had killed their son and daughter. However, Yang Tai's intuition told him that Su Yu must have played a part in it. Especially in the end, the Crane deity, who was determined to kill Su Yu, left a preposterous will, which was unprecedented, to make Su Yu, his enemy, a substitute deity. Yang Tai was sure that such an unusual thing must have been done by Su Yu. Killing a deity was something that Yang Tai didn't even dare to think about. However, Su Yu managed to accomplish it without batting an eyelid. Hearing the whole process, the old man took a deep breath. "Young master, could it be that this guy is the reincarnation of a deity? Isn't his scheming ability too horrible?" Yang Tai sighed. "Yes, it is more horrible every time. As an ant in the mortal world, he can kill a deity. Now, as one of the 100 deities of the Great Eastern Alliance, I have no doubt that he has the ability to move the entire alliance of 100 deities. However, such a person is hostile to me." Until now, Yang Tai regretted his advice to Su Yu, which caused a gap between him and Su Yu. The old man saw through the young master's mind and said, "Young master, why don't we help him?" Yang Tai said with a wry smile, "As one of the 100 deities, what else does he need help for? Providing timely help is better than icing on the cake." I heard the young master of the book deity is very hostile to Su Yu. Last time, he sent someone to assassinate Su Yu. Yang Tai had been paying attention to the war between the two cavern worlds recently. Hearing this, his eyes lit up. Yes, start to pay attention to the information about the book deity's cavern world. In the book deity's cavern world, the young master of the book deity, Qin Feichen, listened to Wucho's report with a hint of worry on his calm face. After a while, he sighed softly. "I've underestimated him. I've missed the best chance to capture him." Now, Su Yu was one of the 100 deities. Although he was just a substitute deity, His status was not fake. If they failed to catch him, the book deity would be the target of public criticism. Moreover, it would be 100 times more difficult to catch him. He was in charge of the crane deity's cavern world, and was surrounded by many powerful experts. Moreover, he was a friend of the Jing deity. The words that he said Su Yu was the reincarnation of the 9 dragons were enough to prove the Jing deity's attitude. If they wanted to catch him, they would have to consider another deity. However, these were not important. The most important thing was that Su Yu had led Xing Yuanxin to the book deity's family. This move was what worried Qin Feichen the most, and what made him the most uneasy. Once Xing Yuanxin found out what Qin Kwa had done, he would be in big trouble. Therefore, seeing that Su Yu was getting stronger, Qin Feichen did not dare to act rashly, for fear that Xing Yuanxin would find out something. As a result, Su Yu was getting stronger and stronger. It was inconvenient for him to take action again, which was really troublesome. Wucho rolled his eyes. "Young master, why don't you leave this matter to an outsider?" "Outsider? An outsider that I can trust?" Qin Feichen sneered. It was better to have one less person in this matter. How could he let an outsider know about it? Wucho laughed. "Young master, have you forgotten the group of dead souls wandering in the darkness in the world of divine remains? As long as you spend money, you can definitely complete the task." Qin Feichen raised his eyebrows slightly and fell into deep thought. Wucho continued, "There is still half a year before the Carnival of All Gods. At that time, Su Yu will appear together with the 100 deities, which will completely confirm his title as the Feather Deity. It will be extremely difficult to take action at that time. Therefore, the only way is to eliminate him before that. Those people in the world of divine remains never fail as long as they are paid." Hearing that, Qin Feichen nodded slowly. "Okay, you handle this matter. Inform them to kill Su Yu. Don't hesitate to pay any price, even if you have to send out the prospective deities of the world of divine remains." He had given up hope of capturing Su Yu alive. It was too difficult to do so. He only hoped to kill Su Yu. Yes, Xing Yuanxin was dealing with official business in the Alliance Hall. When she heard that the war between the 2 caverns ended with the death of the crane deity, she did not care about it at all. Such a war was rare, but it was not strange at all. Anyway, judging from the general trend, the 2 would fight sooner or later. However, when she heard that Su Yu had become a deity, she was surprised. No way! How did this guy do it? When she went to the crane deity's family, she clearly felt that Su Yu was under house arrest rather than a guest. How could he turn from a prisoner to a feather deity in the blink of an eye? Thinking that even someone as smart as Yang Tai was afraid of him, Xing Yuanxin stuck out her tongue. "This guy is really a schemer. Captain Yuan, who are you talking about?" Beside her, a gentle male voice sounded. He was a human and one of the 3 experts of the Sunluo law enforcing team stationed in the Alliance Hall. His name was Bu Rui, and he was also a descendant of the sword deity. His whole body was emitting a sharp sword essence. Even his pupils were in the shape of swords. After being asked, Xing Yuanxin said naturally, "He is the newly promoted feather deity. I heard the Jing deity admitted that he is the reincarnation of 9 dragons." Xing Yuanxin said, "He is a very smart deity. I didn't expect he would become a deity so quickly. What a surprise." It seemed to her that Su Yu could become a deity without any problem. After thinking for a while, Xing Yuanxin said, "He is a human just like you. Haven't you heard of him?" Chapter 1151. Xing Yuanxin smiled and said, "He is very powerful. Otherwise, have you ever heard of a demon god making a human as a substitute god? Anyway, I think he is very smart and can speculate everything. It's amazing." The more Xing Yuanxin praised him, the more Bu Rui was not convinced. He respected Xing Yuanxin, who was a prospective god and the strongest among the descendants of the gods, and had always regarded her as a goal. But Xing Yuanxin was praising another person, and there was even a hint of admiration in her words, which made Bu Rui lose his cool. He laughed and said, Yuanxin, you think too highly of him. He is just a substitute deity, nothing special. If he Rushu, the current head of the crane deity's family, wants to take over, he can deprive him of his deity position with one word. It is really not worth mentioning. Xing Yuanxin tilted her head and said, but the Jing deity said he is the reincarnation of 9 dragons. How can he not be powerful? What was the reincarnation of 9 dragons? They had never heard of it. Hey, what reincarnation of 9 dragons? Can he transform into a real dragon? Bu Rui said disapprovingly. Xing Yuanxin wrinkled her nose. She felt that Bu Rui was belittling Su Yu too much, so she looked away. Noticing the change in Xing Yuanxin's expression, Bu Rui became more and more unconvinced. The reincarnation of 9 dragons? Substitute God? Oh, I'll meet you. In the crane deity's family, Su Yu occupied the secret training room of the crane deity. The spiritual energy here was ordinary because the gods did not need spiritual energy. However, the secret room had the breath left by the crane deity who had been practicing for thousands of years. These breaths accumulated day and night, causing all the items in the secret room to be contaminated with the strong breath of the god. The breath of the gods was a pressure for Su Yu. The effect of the pressure was that Su Yu could get twice the result with half the effort when he practiced here. The dragon form technique, which still needed half a year to be completed, was finally completed. With a light breath, Su Yu's figure turned into a golden dragon shadow for a moment. In addition, Su Yu's soul strength had also increased greatly. Vaguely, Su Yu touched the edge of the illusionary soul realm. Finally, there was the cultivation. After stabilizing the Stage 2 all creations, Su Yu tried to make a breakthrough. As a result, he easily reached Stage 3 all creations. This was due to the enormous resources of the crane deity's cavern world. At the same time, it was also due to the fact that Su Yu had an 8 apertures primordial spirit body. Hence, his cultivation speed was soaring like a rocket. After finishing his training, Su Yu entered the 9 Jade Spiritual Pearl. The space that had once accommodated countless ghosts was now empty, with only a few people left. The tree goddess was teaching Xinggu, who was suffering. As soon as she saw Su Yu, she wiped her tears and hid behind Su Yu with a pitiful look. Tree goddess, can you be more reserved like a goddess? You bullied her and made her cry again. Su Yu said to the tree goddess in front of him. She was still nailed to the throne by the spear condensed from the evil aura. She couldn't move at all, but she could control the throne to carry her and chase after Xinggu. Humph, the little girl isn't content. Without me, how could she have reached the 6th level of the manifestation realm so quickly? The tree goddess was exceptionally blunt. Speaking of which, if it weren't for the ghost prison's great emperor, Su Yu wouldn't have known that Xinggu had the rare constitution of the ghost and Buddha union. Although it was not comparable to the constitution of the descendants of the deities, it was valuable because the body could accommodate the 2 opposite powers of the ghost and Buddha. According to the ghost prison's great emperor, this kind of physique would die prematurely at birth, and it was rare to live to this day. When the tree goddess heard that, she volunteered to be Xinggu's teacher. She guided her from head to toe, fully displaying her physique. Although he had gone through a lot of hardships, he had gained a lot, almost catching up with Su Yu's 8 apertures primordial spirit. He had achieved the cultivation of all creations stage 6 and was only 1 step away from the mortal fairy. With the help of the tree goddess, it would not be difficult for her to become a mortal fairy. Tree goddess, I came here to try and see whether I can pull out the evil fatal energy halberd. Su Yu comforted Xinggu, while wearing a stern look on his face. The carefree tree god suddenly looked serious. Have you found a way? Su Yu nodded. It won't be a problem to use my Milky Way star sand. Milky Way star sand? The tree god shook her head slightly. You have tried it. The evil fatal energy is the power of a deity. Although your Milky Way star sand is an Emperor-based saint artifact, it can only exert less than 10% of its power. At most, it can only absorb the mortal fairy's strength. You can't extract the divine power. That was in the past. Su Yu waved his palm, and a large area of Milky Way star sand flew out from his palm. The hazy starlight condensed into a magnificent scene like the Milky Way, which covered the whole valley. The Milky Way star sand turned into a flying white crane, which was the form of the crane deity. The tree god was pleasantly surprised. Did the crane deity successfully integrate into the saint artifact and become a Holy Spirit? Su Yu nodded. Yes, with the help of the Holy Spirit, I can exert 80% to 90% of its power. Let me try again. The tree god nodded hurriedly. She was pleasantly surprised. At Su Yu's instruction, the Milky Way star sand wrapped the halberd on the tree god's body. The Milky Way star sand rotated, and the stubborn evil fatal energy halberd was easily extracted like tofu. An excited look appeared on the tree god's face. As the evil fatal energy receded, the tree god gradually regained the ability to move its body and almost started dancing with joy. Su Yu was also gratified by this. There was a world of difference between an emperor-based saint artifact and one without an artifact spirit. After a whole month, the halberd, which was condensed by the evil fatal energy, and the evil fatal energy, which had been integrated into the tree god's body for many years, were finally removed. The tree god regained her freedom. Tree god, the halberd has been removed for you. It's time for you to leave, isn't it? Su Yu asked. The tree god jumped down from the throne and said with a smile, her steps as light and graceful as a butterfly, "No way. I still have one thing to do." Su Yu was surprised. What is it? Shouldn't the tree god go to seek revenge on her former enemy? I want to marry you, the tree god said boldly as she stared at Su Yu. I refuse. I'm a goddess, and I'm worth a lot of money. I'm very sad that you refused me so decisively, and it hurt my self-esteem. The look in your eyes tells me that you are up to no good. I didn't. I just heard that after you get married, your property will be shared by the husband and wife. If you divorce, your property can be divided. Anyway, you have so many treasures, so I don't mind sharing half of them with you. Shameless. Being shameless is better than being poor. Stop it. Let's get married and get divorced. Then, let me divide our property. Su Yu was speechless. Su Yu left the 9-jade spiritual pearl as the goddess. Oh, the god of hoodlums, continued to pester him endlessly. Anyway, the 9-jade spiritual pearl couldn't trap him, so it didn't matter if she didn't want to leave. Anyway, without his consent, she couldn't take away even a piece of supreme growing soil. Feather God, a distinguished guest is here. Zhang Yiming's voice came from outside the secret room. As the deputy captain of the law enforcement team in the Crane Deity's cavern world, he was responsible for exchanging hostages with Su Yu. Su Yu asked, "Who is it?" The descendant of the sword god, Bu Rui, who ranks second in the Sunluo law enforcement team. Zhang Yiming said in awe. For him, Bu Rui was a legendary figure. Now, Zhang Yiming had come to visit Su Yu. Even Bu Rui, who was a fugitive in the past, had come to visit Su Yu. Su Yu said, "Ask the family master to entertain me. I am in secluded cultivation, so I can't receive guests for the time being." Recently, many forces had come to visit Su Yu, including many famous geniuses of the Great Eastern Alliance. However, Hirushu had been the one to entertain them all. Hirushu was quite grateful for this. Su Yu didn't interfere in the affairs of the family, which was a sign of respect to Hirushu. Yes. Chapter 1152. In the reception room of the Crane Deity's family, Hirushu's expression was calm as he accompanied the two guests. One of them was Bu Rui, who ranked second in the Sunluo law enforcing team, and the other was Yang Tai, who ranked third. To be honest, Hirushu was shocked when he saw the arrival of the two leaders of the Sunluo law enforcing team. He wondered if they were here to cause trouble. He didn't feel relieved until they asked to see Suyu. Hirushu said to Bu Rui, "Lord Bu, the feather god is at the critical moment of his cultivation, so it is not suitable for him to see guests. If you have something urgent to say, I can pass on the message for you." Hearing that, Bu Rui was a little stunned. He came here to make trouble for Suyu, but he didn't expect that he couldn't even see Suyu. Hirushu smiled apologetically at Yang Tai. Even Bu Rui couldn't see him, let alone Yang Tai, who was of lower status. Seeing Yang Tai also got the same treatment, Bu Rui said with a faint smile, "Brother Yang, I think we'd better go. The threshold of the feather god is too high. We can't see him at all." Yang Tai just smiled and didn't answer. At this moment, Zhang Yiming came over and whispered something to them. Hirushu said with a smile, "Envoy Yang, the feather god wants to see you." This was the first time for Suyu to receive a guest. Hirushu couldn't help but pay more attention to him. Yang Tai nodded at Bu Rui and walked into the backyard calmly, leaving Bu Rui behind. It was not that Suyu looked down on them, but he looked down on him. If Bu Rui was rejected alone or together with Yang Tai, Bu Rui would be too lazy to care. However, when Yang Tai was received later, he was refused at the door. Bu Rui's face turned livid and he was annoyed. "Do you really think you are a god?" He didn't think highly of Suyu, who was a substitute god. "Lord Bu, if you have any message for me," Hirushu said with a smile. Bu Rui flicked his sleeves and left angrily. "Tell Suyu, don't fall into my hands." Hirushu just smiled and shook his head as he looked at Bu Rui's back. Alas! Another reckless guy. He should really pray that Suyu doesn't fall into his hands. Otherwise, it is obvious who will be the unlucky one. The shrine was the place where the gods received their guests, and it was rarely used. Suyu received Yang Tai in the divine palace in a very formal manner. It was obvious that Suyu valued Yang Tai greatly. Sure enough, when Yang Tai found out that Suyu was meeting him in the divine palace, he knew Suyu's intention and was willing to ease the tension between him and Yang Tai. This trip wasn't a waste. Now, I just need to inform him of this important news. Yang Tai entered the divine palace with a smile. After a short while, Suyu came. "Brother Yang, how have you been?" Suyu smiled and said. Yang Tai bowed. "I wouldn't dare. Brother Su, you're a god now. Your status is still important." Suyu waved his hand. "When I was a mortal, I didn't see you, the descendant of a deity, asking me to greet you. Everything is the same between us, so there's no need to care about etiquette." Upon hearing this, Yang Tai relaxed completely. Since Suyu was willing to let go of the unpleasantness, the two of them had a tacit understanding that they had become friends. It's for your sake." Yang Tai sat down with a smile. Then, he said with a serious look, "Brother Su, please forgive me if I have offended you in such a hurry. This matter is really important, so I have to tell you this." Suyu said with a smile, "I'm all ears." Yang Tai took out a file and handed it to Suyu. Then, he said, "My intelligence agents have been monitoring the Book Deity's family. 3 months ago, our people found Wucho, the trusted follower of the Book Deity's young master, left secretly. Only a few people in the Book Deity's family knew about this. Therefore, my people have been following Wucho for 3 whole months. Our people found Wucho went to the world of divine remains alone." Suyu raised his eyebrows. "The world of divine remains? The area near the realm of demons? Isn't he afraid of being devoured by the demon clan?" Hearing that, Yang Tai said, "Brother Su, you don't know this. The world of divine remains is really close to the realm of demons. However, most of the creatures who have betrayed the other cavern worlds gather there. They have nowhere else to go and can only survive there. However, the realm of demons never invades that place. They deliberately attract the traitors of the other cavern worlds to the realm of demons. Then, these traitors lead the way to invade the other cavern worlds. Hearing that, Su Yu's eyes were filled with killing intent. These traitors were the most detestable enemies. Our people have been following him. They found he went to the Netherworld faction in the world of divine remains. Yang Tai said seriously when he mentioned the Netherworld faction, "Brother Su, you may not know this, but the Netherworld faction is an extremely horrible killer organization. Its members are all traitors of the cavern worlds who have been living on the edge of blades. Some of them are stronger than others. The weakest among them is at the mortal fairy realm, while the strongest one is at the prospective deity realm." Hearing that, Su Yu was a bit surprised. Prospective deity? Having witnessed Xing Yuanxin's attack, Su Yu knew how horrible a prospective deity was. In addition, there is the death deity, the leader of the Netherworld faction, who rarely fights. A deity? This organization is really huge. According to the information we got, Wu Chou has assigned a task in the Netherworld faction, which is to kill you. As for the price, he will kill you at any cost. Yang Tai said seriously. Su Yu realized the seriousness of this matter. Regardless of the price, the target might be a mortal fairy at the peak, or even a prospective deity. With Su Yu's current cultivation, even a mortal fairy at the peak would be in danger, let alone a prospective deity. If he fought with a prospective deity, he would have a slim chance of survival. Brother Yang, the information you brought to me is really important. Su Yu stood up to express his gratitude. This gift was enough for Su Yu to forget all his previous grudges. Yang Tai had achieved his goal. So, he said, "Brother Su, if you need any help, just tell me. I can provide 1 or 2 prospective deities in my family." Even the All-Access family couldn't have too many prospective deities. Even Yang Tai wasn't qualified to enjoy the protection of a prospective deity. So, he was quite reluctant to say that. "Brother Yang, I appreciate your kindness. However, I have a way to deal with it," Su Yu said. Yang Tai heaved a sigh of relief secretly. If Su Yu really asked for help, Yang Tai would have to beg his family. The prospective deities of the Netherworld faction were all experienced in life and death battles. The prospective deities cultivated by his family with all kinds of resources were no match for the prospective deities in a one-on-one fight. If 1 or 2 of them died, it would be a great loss. Even as a young master, he couldn't bear such a loss. "Brother Su, be careful. My people are back, so those killers are probably back too. Brother Su, please be careful," Yang Tai said. Su Yu nodded his head. Then, he saw Yang Tai off. When he returned to the Divine Hall, Su Yu's face became serious. Fighting with a prospective deity was one thing, and guarding against a prospective deity was another. Undoubtedly, the latter was dozens of times more difficult. "I have to get ready," Su Yu said coldly. "Unless the death deity comes, you won't be able to leave this place alive." Now, Su Yu was responsible for the safety of the entire Jiuzhou Cavern world and the Crane deity's cavern world. He couldn't allow any mishap to happen to him. Anyone or anything that could harm him would be destroyed. As he was thinking, Su Yu turned his palm over. The Milky Way star sand turned into the shape of the Crane deity. "Where is the evil fatal energy?" the Crane deity said. "Inside the Milky Way star sand." Of course, the objects refined by the Milky Way star sand wouldn't disappear into thin air. They were just transferred to another place, which was inside the Milky Way star sand. Extract all of them and condense them into a long halberd. In 2 months, no, in 1 month, you must complete it. Yes. With the divine soul of the Crane deity, it wasn't difficult to condense the evil fatal energy, which contained divine strength, into a long halberd. The next moment, Su Yu turned his palm over and took out a golden arrow. The arrow wasn't as bright as before. It was a bit dim, but it was still emitting a terrifying energy. The celestial destroying arrow was also one of Su Yu's killer weapons. However, it was far from enough. Guarding against a prospective deity was 100 times more dangerous than fighting against a prospective deity. Moreover, the prospective deity was an experienced killer who was good at assassination. With a flash, Su Yu appeared in the 9-jade spiritual pearl again. Do you regret it? Do you want to marry me now? The tree goddess was teasing Shinga playfully. Su Yu ignored her and said to Shinga, "How's the recovery of the chaos multicolored butterfly?" Shinga got rid of the tree goddess immediately and said, "It has been fully recovered. Because my master put in a lot of divine objects in the Great Eastern Alliance that Gyoujo doesn't have, it has improved again. When it flaps its wings, it is really powerful." Really? Su Yu was a bit delighted. When Su Yu was a peak mortal fairy, the chaos multicolored butterfly flapped its wings and almost killed Su Yu. Now it had improved a lot. How much more powerful was it? Shinga nodded her head vigorously. Okay, continue to train it. If you need anything, just take it from the supreme growing soil. I will need it in 2 months. Shinga nodded her head hurriedly. Hey, are you in trouble? The tree goddess asked. Su Yu paused a bit and said, Yes, there may be a killer of a prospective deity. The tree goddess frowned. A prospective deity is a very vague concept. A prospective deity who has just obtained his celestial energy sphere is a prospective deity. A prospective deity who is only a step away from becoming a deity is also a prospective deity. The gap between different prospective deities is the same as the gap between a mortal fairy and a deity. It is incomparable. Although I have escaped, my celestial energy sphere has been seriously consumed over the years. If it is a prospective deity in the early stage, I should be able to defeat him. If it is a prospective deity in the middle stage, he should be able to kill me. If it is a prospective deity in the late stage, he should be able to kill me. By the way, what kind of prospective deity wants to kill you? Su Yu frowned deeply. This is the problem. The specific strength of a prospective deity, how many there are, where they are now, and when they will attack, are all unknown. Hearing this, the tree goddess also fell into deep thought. You are in a passive situation, so you can only strengthen your defense. However, Su Yu's eyes flashed, and he shook his head in a deep voice. I do need to strengthen my defense, but I want to take the initiative. Those killers are best at taking the initiative. This time, I want them to be in the most disadvantageous situation. Chapter 1153. After leaving the 9-jade spiritual pearl, Su Yu now had the evil fatal halberd, the celestial destroying arrow, the chaos multicolored butterfly, and the tree goddess. The only one who had the confidence to deal with a prospective god was the tree goddess, and it could only be an early-stage prospective god. It's far from enough. Su Yu was lost in thought. There were many strong people in the crane deity's cavern. However, for the prospective deities, the number of people was no longer an advantage, but a disadvantage. The assassin could blend into the crowd at any time and sneak over without anyone noticing. As a god, Su Yu didn't have many people at his disposal. He could only rely on himself. With a thought, Su Yu took out a few purple flames, which were wrapped in lumps of heavenly orchid silver bamboo liquid drop. There were still 6 more, enough to refine 6 heavenly orchid silver bamboo sword. In the 9 states, apart from the little Kylin, no one could successfully refine a fairy weapon. But in the Great Eastern Alliance, it couldn't be easier. The God of Instruments cavern world was a cavern world created by a god who had become a god through weapon refinement. There were many weapon refinement masters in the cavern world, and it was very easy to ask them to refine a lower-grade immortal weapon. Half a day later, Hirushu came to Su Yu. Feather God, are you leaving? Su Yu nodded. Yes, I will be back in at least half a month, or at most a month. After giving instructions, Su Yu went straight to the God of Instruments cavern world. Even with a divine-level teleportation array, it would take 5 to 6 days to rush to the God of Instruments cavern world. After Su Yu left, at the edge of the crane deity's cavern world, A middle-aged woman with a pretty face and an ordinary temperament was walking casually in a busy city. If there was a meticulous person, they would definitely notice that this woman was in the depths of the bustling city, but the people around her ignored her. She was clearly such a beautiful woman, but even if they brushed past her, no one would give her a second glance. It was as if everyone had completely ignored him. In a restaurant on the street, Xing Yuanxin frowned slightly. A prospective deity should be practicing the way of concealment. Even if she stands in front of others, no one will notice her. I wonder which family has trained her. Sitting across from him was Bu Rui. He faintly glanced at the woman. Sure enough, he clearly knew of the woman's existence, but every time his gaze fell on her, he couldn't help but look away. She tried several times, but she still couldn't see the woman. Tut, if this person is a killer, he is quite powerful, Bu Rui said casually. Xing Yuanxin nodded slightly. Have you found out where Boutier is? Bu Rui nodded. After he left the crane deity's family, he immediately disappeared. In order to avoid being killed by the crane deity's family, he didn't return to the book deity's cavern world. Instead, he fled to the device deity's cavern world, which is unrelated to him. I think he planned to stay away from the secular world and live in seclusion from then on. Xing Yuanxin said, Yes, then let's go to the God of Instruments' cavern world to look for him. He is one of the few who came back alive from a mission in the 9 states, so he must know some information about Qinque. Yuanxin, why do you care so much about Qinque's case? Bu Rui was confused. This kind of case didn't need the leader of the Sunluo law enforcers to be so concerned. Of course, Xing Yuanxin didn't dare to tell him how deep the waters of the Zhozhou mission were. She pretended to be angry and said, A law enforcement officer was publicly killed. If we don't punish him severely, it will only encourage the bad spirits. Hearing this, Bu Rui said, Yes, we law enforcement officers are above all living beings, but some people dare to look down on us. He was obviously referring to Suyu. What kind of contempt was this? Suyu didn't even want to meet him? Yes, you're right. Xing Yuanxin felt guilty. 6 days later, in the cavern world of the God of Instrument, according to the information obtained by Suyu, there were 4 crafting masters in the cavern world of the God of Instrument. Among them, Wang Yunxian, the crafting master from the east, was the most proficient. Except for the God of Instrument, no one could compete with him in forging. The magical artifacts he made were not only of high quality but also very fast. What Suyu lacked the most was time. Wang Yunxian had a bad habit that many famous crafting masters had. He would never waste time on a magical artifact that was not challenging. However, Wang Yunxuan's bad habit was more serious. He not only wanted the artifact to be challenging, but also exciting. Otherwise, he wouldn't make it no matter how much money he was offered. Such a strange temper made people wonder. Su Yu's 6 fairy swords were difficult and easy at the same time. It was very difficult to determine whether they met Wang Yunxuan's requirements. The other 3 were much better tempered. As long as they could afford it, they wouldn't refuse anyone. After thinking for a while, Su Yu finally went to the mansion of Wang Yunxian. There were many people outside Wang Yunxuan's mansion. Su Yu was just one of them. He didn't reveal his identity as the Feather God. Instead, he waited quietly in the line to be received by Wang Yunxian. My master has ordered that only middle-grade magical artifacts and above will be made today. When Wang Yunxian was about to receive the guests, a boy opened the door of the mansion and said loudly. Hearing this, almost everyone walked away. Is this a joke? How could middle-grade magical artifacts be made so easily? It would cost more than 10 times more financial and material resources than low-grade magical artifact. They weren't surprised because Wang Yunxian was like this all year round. Occasionally, when he was in a good mood, he would ask the boy to give them an unacceptable condition to drive them away. After a while, the door of the mansion was deserted. Seeing that there was still one person outside the mansion, the boy asked, "Are you going to make middle-grade magical artifacts?" Suyu shook his head. "Only 6 low-grade magical artifacts." Hearing that, the boy shook his head. "Please go back. My master is in a bad mood. He doesn't want to make magical artifacts today." Suyu said with a smile, "If it were me, Master Wang would still be willing to see me. Please pass the message to him." The bald boy said with a bitter face, "Alas, don't worry. Recently, my master hasn't received any interesting crafting task. He is in a bad mood. If you are not afraid of ruining the materials of the magical artifacts, I won't stop you." Heh. If your master knows it's me, he might be in a good mood." Seeing that Suyu was so reckless, the boy said, "May I ask who you are?" "Suyu, well, you can also call me the Feather God." The boy was surprised. "Are you the Feather God? What do you think?" "Your master will be interested in my arrival," Suyu said. However, the boy's face darkened. "I advise you to leave now. My master has been scolding you the most these days." Suyu was stunned. "Scolding me? Forget it. Just tell him that if he doesn't invite me in, I will find someone else." The boy had no choice but to report to Suyu. Wang Yunxian was in his 50s. His cultivation was average. Unlike ordinary crafting masters, he was handsome and dignified. Hearing the boy's report, Wang Yunxian stood up abruptly. Then, he patted the table and said angrily with red eyes, "That bastard! How dare he come to me? Usurping the position of a deity is such an interesting thing. Why didn't he ask me to do it?" The boy opened his mouth widely. "My God! It turns out that my master didn't ask Suyu to participate in such an exciting thing as usurping the position of a deity. Speaking of which, there was a rumor circulating in the market that Suyu's deity position was instigated. The news was groundless, but some people believed it. After all, Suyu became the agent of the crane deity's cavern world, which was really strange. So, should I drive him away? Wait, what is he going to craft? Fairy artifacts. 6 low-grade fairy artifacts. Boring stuff. I am not interested. Wang Yunxian waved his hand impatiently. The boy sighed and said to himself, "I should have told you earlier." What else did he say? The boy said, "He also said that if I don't invite him in, I will invite someone else." Hearing that, Wang Yunxian rolled his eyes and said, "Let him in." The boy was confused. What does his eccentric master want to do? After a while, Suyu saw Wang Yunxian in the yard. "Master Wang, the divine bone warship you made is quite durable," Suyu said with a smile as soon as he entered the yard. In order to escape, Wang Yunxian had built 3 ships and 2 small divine bone ships. Then, he hired 2 black market craftsmen to make the warship. As for the giant warship, it was also hired by black market craftsmen. However, no one knew that the person who had refined the warship was none other than Wang Yunxian. Nobody expected the famous Wang Yunxian would work in the black market. Moreover, he heard that Suyu had hired black market craftsmen to build the warship, so he volunteered to help Suyu. As for the reason, how exciting would it be if he could help a terrifying kidnapper escape successfully? "No fairy artifacts," Wang Yunxian said immediately when he saw Suyu. Suyu said with a smile, "Even a fairy artifact that can kill prospective deities? Kill prospective deities?" Wang Yunxuan's angry face was filled with surprise. Then, his eyes lit up. "Prospective deities? Which family's prospective deities are they from?" "The Netherworld faction," Suyu said calmly. Hearing that, Wang Yunxian was not afraid. Instead, he patted his thigh and said excitedly, "Ha ha ha, a prospective deity from the Netherworld faction. This is more exciting than killing a prospective deity from a deity family. The prospective deities of the Netherworld faction are more cunning and difficult to deal with. This is the most exciting way to kill them." "I knew it. You didn't come to me for nothing." Wang Yunxuan's face was filled with joy, which the boy hadn't seen for a long time. Then, he patted Su Yu's shoulder and said, "Okay, I will help you. However, can you kill a prospective deity with only 6 low-grade fairy artifacts? Don't fool me." Su Yu said with a faint smile, "6 may not work, but what about 9? Still not enough." Wang Yunxian was quite clear about the power of a prospective deity. "What about 9? Su Yu said with a faint smile. 9. Wang Yunxian was lost in thought. 9? Are you going to set up a sword formation? If it is a superior sword formation, it is not impossible, but it is still very difficult." Su Yu agreed with him. He didn't think a complete version of the 9 Suns sword formation could kill a prospective deity. If it was so easy, a prospective deity would be too worthless and would have been killed long ago. However, Wang Yunxuan's eyes were filled with excitement. However, this is the only way to challenge it. 9 low-grade fairy artifacts may not be enough, but a middle-grade fairy artifact, heh. Su Yu raised his eyebrows. "These materials are only enough to craft a low-grade fairy artifact, right?" Wang Yunxian said excitedly. "That's why it is interesting. You can make the impossible possible. This is the only way to challenge it. Let me take a look at the 3 swords on your back." Su Yu gave him the 3 heavenly orchid silver bamboo swords. After a glance, Wang Yunxuan's pupils constricted and he exclaimed in surprise, "Good swords! The one who crafted these swords must be a divine-level crafting master. He is no worse than my master. Is the little Kylan so powerful? Where did the crafting skills inherited in its mind come from? Could it be the god of instrument? It's a pity that the flame was not pure enough, and the crafting time was too long. That's why the grade of the swords couldn't be improved. Forget it. I will offend this divine-level crafting master and reforge these 3 swords." Wang Yunxian started crafting with the 3 swords and materials in his arms. Su Yu watched patiently from the side. There were many procedures to craft a fairy artifact. Wang Yunxian summoned a group of people and taught them some simple procedures. Su Yu glanced at the group of people and stared at one of them in surprise. That person was also staring at Su Yu in surprise. However, Su Yu withdrew his gaze and pretended he didn't know him. He escaped from the family of the crane deity here because he wanted to live a secluded life and didn't want to be disturbed. At this moment, the bald doorman hurried over with sweat all over his face. "Master, the captain of the Sunluo Law Enforcing Team, Xing Yuanxin and Bu Rui, are here to visit you. Few people would like to be visited by the Sunluo Law Enforcing Team. After all, they had the power to kill all creatures except the descendants of deities." Wang Yunxian was a bit displeased. However, he couldn't refuse the visit of the Sunluo Law Enforcing Team. Hearing that, Boutier's face darkened. When the doorman was about to leave, Su Yu said, "No need. Just tell them the feather deity is here, and Master Wang has no time to receive guests." The doorman's eyes almost popped out. How dare he refuse the Sunluo Law Enforcing Team? However, after thinking about it carefully, he realized Su Yu was just a substitute deity. Who could stop him if he violated his own rules? Wang Yunxian said with a smile, "How domineering! I like it." Boutier let out a sigh of relief and looked at Su Yu gratefully. Outside the door, the 2 Sunluo Law Enforcing Team members had totally different attitude. Xing Yuanxin was stunned. "How could I meet that guy here?" However, Bu Rui said angrily with a dark face, "How dare you? He expelled me in the family of the crane deity. How dare he expel me in Wang Yunxuan's mansion? Does he really think he is the reincarnation of 9 dragons?" Chapter 1154. As soon as he stepped in, he was blocked by a faint divine power. "Yuanxin? Are you going to stop me?" Bu Rui said angrily. Xing Yuanxin said, "After all, he is a deity. If you offend him and get killed by him, the sword god will have nothing to say. Do you understand?" It would have been fine if he didn't say that. Bu Rui laughed angrily and said, You are just an all-creation's fake god. You think you can kill me? Burui, I should take you back to the Sunluo law enforcing team for questioning because of the fake deity's words. The crane deity's legacy runs through the cavern world, which is absolutely true. He is the proxy, not the fake deity. If you continue to talk nonsense, I can't turn a blind eye to the crime of slandering the deity. Xing Yuanxin said lightly. She didn't like Bu Rui's aggressive character. Compared with Su Yu, Bu Rui was on the other end of the spectrum. Xing Yuanxin thought of Su Yu's low-key, steady, calm, and far-sighted ability to devise strategies to win a battle from 1,000 miles away. Bu Rui stepped back. He knew Xing Yuanxin's character. She looked weak but was very principled. If he insisted on it, Xing Yuanxin would enforce the law impartially. Humph! Bu Rui stepped back, full of resentment. Xing Yuanxin said seriously, slandering, attacking, and slandering a deity are all felonies. As a Sunluo law enforcing team, I hope you will remember this. The more she behaved like this, the more indignant Bu Rui was. What right did a mere all-creations kid from a humble family have to ride on his head? In terms of identity, he was the descendant of the sword god, and his father was one of the 9 top deities. In terms of strength, he ranked second among the descendants of deities, second only to Xing Yuanxin, who was a peak mortal fairy. In terms of strength, he was thousands of times stronger than Su Yu. Why should he be inferior to Su Yu? He couldn't swallow his anger. Seeing Bu Rui going to the extreme, Xing Yuanxin sighed silently. It was better to give in and accept a setback. As a descendant, you can't take the initiative to attack a deity. However, as one of the 9 law enforcing team of the Alliance Hall, you have a privilege, Xing Yuanxin said slowly. Bu Rui, who was angry, suddenly thought of something. The top 3 law enforcers of the Sunluo law enforcers would get the position of law enforcer of the Alliance Hall. Although it was just an empty position and they didn't manage the affairs of the Alliance Hall, they had real power. One of the rights to go unnoticed by others was to gain the right to challenge any god once every 3 years. This was a rule set by the 100 deities when they formed the alliance. Whoever received a challenge, unless they were traveling outside, could not refuse it. It was just that it was ridiculous to challenge a god. Even a prospective god would not think that challenging a god would bring them any benefit. After all, the gap between the 2 sides was too great. If he lost the battle at the very beginning, how could he gain anything from it? Therefore, this privilege was almost ignored by the law enforcers. After being reminded by Xing Yuanxin, he suddenly thought of something and couldn't help but sneer. Challenge a deity? I Bu Rui will be the first person in history. With that, Bu Rui showed an excited look. Challenging a deity was something that had never happened before. When the time came, many deities would descend to watch. If he defeated a deity in front of the deities and won their praise, Bu Rui felt excited just thinking about it. Looking at his fantasizing expression, Xing Yuanxin sighed slightly. I hope that guy will show mercy and not embarrass him too much. In the mansion, the fairy weapon was being refined in an orderly manner. In order to forcibly refine the materials of a low-grade fairy weapon into a middle-grade fairy weapon, Wang Yunxian could be said to have spent a lot of money. Not only did he integrate many precious materials, but also some extinct materials that couldn't be bought on the market. But these were not enough. The heavenly orchid silver bamboo sword was the main material, and the material itself had already determined that the grade of the magic weapon refined was limited. No matter how high Wang Yunxuan's refining level was, he couldn't reverse the law of nature. However, it was precisely because of the challenge that Wang Yunxian became more and more excited. In the end, he sacrificed his blood of the descendants of a deity, the bloodline of the instrument god. As a descendant of the instrument god, his bloodline contained magical effects that could improve the grade of materials. However, the bloodline of the descendants of a deity would be less and less. The fainter the purity of the bloodline, the lower the possibility of inheriting the position of the instrument god. Wang Yunxian didn't care about it at all. He just kept vomiting the divine blood, which made Su Yu's heart palpitate. Equipment refining was a physical work for others, but equipment refining was a life-threatening job for him. 9 middle-grade fairy weapons. Even for a top equipment forging grandmaster like Wang Yunxian, it still took him a long time to refine them. After 15 days, the refining process was finally completed. From the bone-chilling ice well water, Wang Yunxian took out the solid 9 swords. They still looked like the swords in the 9 Suns sword formation. They didn't change at will. What was slightly different was that there was a faint trace of red on the edge of the sword, which looked like a trace of blood that hadn't dried up for a long time after killing someone. The holy and beautiful heavenly orchid silver bamboo sword in the past was a little bit more solemn now. When he touched the handle of the sword, Su Yu heard a heartbeat coming from the silver sword, as if the heavenly orchid silver bamboo sword had come to life. Middle-grade fairy weapons already have spirituality. If a soul is willing to be integrated into the body of the sword, it will become a weapon spirit. The grade of the heavenly orchid silver bamboo sword can be improved to a higher level and reach the power of a top-grade fairy weapon. If a soul was willing to become a weapon spirit, it would at least be a top-grade fairy weapon. The soul of an ordinary person would never be willing to do that. However, even a middle-grade fairy weapon was enough for Su Yu. When it was a low-grade fairy weapon, the 3 Suns sword formation could kill a stage 2 mortal fairy. When it was a middle-grade fairy weapon, it was really unknown how powerful the 9 Suns sword formation could be. This is interesting. I'm afraid the prospective deity of the Netherworld faction is going to suffer a loss. Wang Yunxuan's eyes were full of expectation. The prospective deity of the Netherworld faction is not the kind of trash that the Great Eastern Alliance fed. I can't guarantee that you can kill him with this sword formation. Su Yu smiled. If I can kill him in this way, I have underestimated the Netherworld faction. As the gathering place of traitors in the cavern world, the world of divine remains must be a chaotic and dark place without rules. It was imaginable how difficult it was to become a prospective deity in that place. Ha ha ha, this is challenging. Wang Yunxian was full of excitement and expectation. He waved his sleeves and said to the bald boy, "Tomorrow, tell the guests that I am out for some business and can't accept crafting for the time being." The bald boy asked, "Where are you going?" "To continue crafting, of course. I want to craft a large set of weapons that can kill prospective deities. What could be more interesting than that?" Wang Yunxian volunteered to take the initiative, regardless of whether Su Yu agreed or not. Su Yu, of course, nodded and agreed. The crafting materials will be provided by the Crane deity's family. As for the manpower, I will add a few helpers. Wang Yunhe pointed at a few people behind him, but Boutier was not among them. Su Yu paused for a moment and said, "Take that guy away too." Wang Yunxian glanced at him. "He is a newbie, but he is quite efficient. Right, take him away too." Boutier was deeply grateful. The Sunlua law enforcing envoys were outside, and they were probably coming for him. Su Yu was willing to take him away because he wanted to protect him. "Wait a moment, I will inform my father. That old guy loves me like a woman. If I don't inform him, I am afraid he will come to the Crane deity's family," Wang Yunxian said. Su Yu nodded. After Wang Yunxian left, they came to a quiet place. Boutier understood tacitly. He went forward and knelt down to pay his respect. "Thank you, Feather God." "No need. Besides, you don't need to be too afraid of the Sunlua law enforcing envoys. I will plead for you," Su Yu said calmly. "Tell me, what do you know about Qin Kwa?" Boutier said, "Before we set off, Qin Kwa was instructed by the young master, Qin Feichen. I don't know the details." Su Yu squinted his eyes. "Qin Feichen? Right, is Qin Kwa close to him?" "Yes, Qin Kwa is from the Book deity's family. He has been following Qin Feichen since he was young and is his confidant. He is more trusted than me. Su Yu pondered for a moment, then said, "So, why did you go to Jiuzhou to carry out the mission?" Boutier hesitated for a moment, then said, "We received a notice that a remnant soul of a demon god was causing trouble in the galaxy. We chased it all the way and forced it into the cavern world of Jiuzhou." This reason was truly flawless. It was clear that he entered the Jiuzhou cavern world under the pretext of chasing the demonic god of withered bones, and rescued the Central Prefecture's king when he was in trouble. "Where is the demonic god of withered bones? Who passed this mission to you?" Su Yu asked. Boutier was taken aback. "The demonic god of withered bones is in the Alliance Hall. The one relaying the mission is a prospective deity, Law Enforcer Liuli. Law Enforcer Liuli was not like Xing Yuanxin, Bu Rui, or Yang Tai, who only cared about prolonging their lives. Instead, he was a supreme being who held real power and commanded all law enforcers in the world. Apart from the Sunluo law enforcers, they had the highest status under the gods. As expected, the enemy was within. The demonic god of withered bones and law enforcer Liuli must be insiders. "Let's go," Wang Yunxian urged Su Yu angrily. Looking at his weird expression, Su Yu couldn't help but think of the image of the god of instrument. How could he torture Wang Yunxian like this? They left the house together. Outside the yard, Xing Yuanxin and Bu Rui had been waiting quietly for a month. Xing Yuanxin smiled calmly, "Feather God." Bu Rui snorted disdainfully, "We are here for Boutier. Where is the Sunluo law enforcers investigating the case? Please hand him over as soon as possible." Su Yu pretended he didn't see him and said, "Miss Yuanxin, let's talk in private." Xing Yuanxin nodded and had a secret conversation with Su Yu for a while. Xing Yuanxin's face changed several times. Then, she said, "The demonic god of withered bones is in the Sunluo Law Enforcer's Hall and is being protected temporarily. However, Law Enforcer Liuli has a high status. We can't catch him without solid evidence. So, we can only find the demonic god of withered bones. I will go back to interrogate him now." When they separated, Xing Yuanxin said, "Let's go." Bu Rui said, "Don't you want to take Boutier back?" "No need. Su Yu has told me what Boutier knows. There is no need to ask further," Xing Yuanxin said. Bu Rui was surprised. Xing Yuanxin trusted Su Yu so much? He couldn't believe they trusted each other so much. He didn't know Xing Yuanxin, and Su Yu had a common secret. They had the same interests in this matter, so they could naturally trust each other. Seeing Xing Yuanxin ignored him, Bu Rui was jealous. They had been together for many years, but Xing Yuanxin didn't trust him so much. How many times had Su Yu met Xing Yuanxin? He couldn't suppress the anger in his heart anymore. Chapter 1155. I refuse. Why? Are you afraid? Coward. Well, I am afraid that if I beat the young one, the old one will come. Xing Yuanxin, who was walking in front, couldn't help but laugh. She quickly covered her mouth and blushed. She thought to herself, "This guy is really merciless. It seems that Bu Rui won't be able to defeat him." Bu Rui's face was livid. As a descendant of the Sword God, if he was injured, the Sword God would most likely help him. "Don't worry, I took the initiative to challenge the gods. As long as you don't kill me, no one can blame you. Even my father." Xing Yuanxin also turned around and said helplessly, "The law enforcement officer has the right to challenge the gods once. This is the covenant made by the god. Since you have become an acting god, you still have to bear the corresponding obligations." Su Yu nodded. "Okay, I will give some advice to the younger generation, nephew Rui." Puff. Xing Yuanxin also laughed, but she couldn't help but stare at Su Yu. As a god, Su Yu and the 100 gods were of the same generation, so it was not inappropriate to call Bu Rui, a descendant of the gods, nephew. However, Xing Yuanxin was also a descendant of the gods, which was one generation lower than Su Yu. Does it mean that I have to accept him calling me niece? This guy. Xing Yuanxin was angry and amused at the same time. Hearing this, Bu Rui's face turned livid. However, he was indeed a god, so he couldn't refute it. He gritted his teeth and said, "Don't be complacent. Half a month later, in front of the crane deity's family, I will challenge you. Don't beg for mercy." "No problem, but the time has been slightly changed. It will be set in a month." Su Yu smiled lightly. Bu Rui was confused. Why did he change it to a month later? A month later, it was the time for the Carnival of All Gods. However, if it didn't affect the challenge, he didn't care about half a month. Okay. A month later, the day before the Carnival of All Gods, you and I will fight. It was only then that Su Yu nodded and accepted the challenge. When Su Yu and Wang Yunxian returned to the crane deity's family, it was already 6 days later. Hirushu hurriedly led his people to welcome Su Yu. On the day that Su Yu left, they were really worried that Su Yu would leave the mess of the crane deity's family. "Welcome back, Feather God." Su Yu didn't have much time left, so he waved his hand and said, "You don't have to be so courteous. Just make arrangements for these people." Hirushu looked up and saw a person standing side by side with Su Yu. At first glance, he looked familiar, but he didn't know who it was. He was furious. Who was so arrogant as to stand side by side with the Feather God? Fortunately, an old man of the crane deity's family hurriedly whispered this person's identity to Hirushu. Hearing this, Hirushu's eyes flickered. Wang Yunxian? The heir most valued by the god of instrument? Even if Hirushu didn't know him personally, he should have heard of him. Not only did he have a high level of craftsmanship, but he also had a strange temper. More importantly, he was loved by the god of instrument the most, far more than his other brothers and sisters. It could be said that he was the next generation god of instrument. How could he not be happy that his feather god had brought back a candidate for the god of arms after leaving for a month? All these could indirectly help the crane deity's family. "So it's Grandmaster Wang, please come in quickly." Hirushu did not dare to be negligent. Wang Yunxian waved his hand and said, "There's no need to rest. I'll just leave the spacious, large secret chamber. I'm going to start forging soon." Hirushu was surprised. He didn't know what Wang Yunxian meant. He thought to himself, could it be that the feather god invited him back? Soon, Wang Yunxian made the arrangement. Wang Yunxian was very mysterious about what kind of magic weapon he wanted to forge to deal with the prospective deity. He only knew that the design of this item was obtained from the relics of the deities, which had long been lost in the world. It took him 7 or 8 years to forge that magic weapon. The main body had been completed. Now, only some parts were needed to be completed. In order to kill the prospective deity of the Netherworld faction, Wang Yuxuan really put in a lot of effort. Of course, in order to cooperate with him, Su Yu also agreed that the consumption of those parts would be borne by the crane deity's family. After making arrangements for him, Su Yu asked, "How's the thing I asked you to do?" Hirushu said, "Feather God, we have sent people to guard the black market according to the Feather God's words to collect the information you want." Assassins in the dark were indeed a big advantage. They could assassinate Su Yu at any time. However, they had a great weakness: information. As an outsider, he was unfamiliar with the people and the place. If he wanted to know the specific situation of Su Yu, he could only inquire in the street. Without reliable and effective information, it would be extremely difficult to kill Su Yu. And to inquire about reliable, timely, and accurate information, only the black market that specialized in selling information was the most reliable. Therefore, if the assassins of the Netherworld faction wanted to know specific information about Su Yu, they could only go to the black market to buy information about Su Yu. Su Yu took the information presented by Hirushu and briefly flipped through it. There were details about Su Yu in the past month, especially the creatures who had information about Su Yu's whereabouts. "Well done. Su Yu said. After returning to the secret room, he said, "Submit your investigation as well." Yes. A ghostly fog filled the air, and the intelligence personnel belonging to Su Yu, like a ghost, presented another piece of information. The content was the same. They were all detailed investigations of the creatures who had recently inquired about Su Yu's information. However, in contrast, the information presented by Su Yu's intelligence personnel was much more comprehensive. The Crane deity's family really lags behind in terms of intelligence. Not to mention, compared with the All-Access family, even Su Yu's newly established intelligence system was far inferior. Putting down the intelligence of the Crane deity's family, Su Yu focused on analyzing the content of his own intelligence system. A day later, Su Yu sorted out the fragmented information and said thoughtfully, "Because of the sudden emergence of a new force, I became famous too quickly. There are many creatures who inquired about my news, but very few of them even wanted to inquire about where I went." Su Yu's finger pointed on a list. The above was a list of people who had inquired about Su Yu's whereabouts in the past month. There were as many as 100 people. Among the 100 people, there were no outsiders. They were all locals of the Great Eastern Alliance, belonging to different forces. Su Yu was not disappointed, or it was expected. If Su Yu was a killer, for the sake of prudence, he would never take the initiative to collect information. He only needed to spend a little money to let the locals of the Great Eastern Alliance collect information for him. In the list of 100 people, Su Yu circled 10 more people. The 10 of them were the most famous second-hand dealers in the black market. They knew the black market very well. They were very clear about where there was information to sell, and they were very willing to help customers collect information as long as they paid a lot of money. Among the 10 people, Su Yu circled 3 more people. The 3 people investigated Su Yu's whereabouts most frequently in the past month. They inquired about Su Yu's whereabouts in detail almost every day. Contact the intelligence personnel over there and confirm the current status of the 3 people. Su Yu took out the paper and handed it to Gu Ying in front of him. 2 days later, Su Yu received news that 2 of the 3 people had been missing for 7 days and 14 days respectively. Now only one person was still active and frequently investigated Su Yu's information. Is there only one named Zhuang Lin? It seems that the other 2 intelligence personnel were killed by you one after another. You are really cautious. I am afraid it will not take long for this one to be killed by you, right? Su Yu's eyes flashed with deep light. Order the intelligence personnel to capture this person alive and torture him to find out how many people he has been in contact with recently. What are their appearances, and what are their cultivation levels? Torture them all clearly. Yes. But soon, the intelligence personnel reported back that Zhuang Lin was missing, and the intelligence personnel had lost his trace. Feather God, do you continue to investigate his whereabouts? Perhaps, he noticed the tracking of the intelligence personnel and fled vigilantly, Gu Ying said. Su Yu shook his head. Zhuang Lin can detect the investigation of the intelligence personnel, and I am afraid those killers have also felt it. There is no need to waste energy to find him. Zhuang Lin is dead, and my purpose has been achieved. Although this time, the killers realized that they had been exposed, they would not dare to continue to inquire about the information in the black market. If he was right, these killers had collected enough information and were on the way to the Crane deity's cavern world. In a certain black market, the corpse of Zhuang Lin, who had quite a reputation as an informant, was lying in an ice-cold secret chamber. Beside him were 2 other rotting corpses. Impressively, they were informants who had quite a reputation as well. The secret room was dark, and no one knew how many people were in it. He's being watched. It seems that he's been probing too often and has attracted the attention of someone with ulterior motives. Fortunately, we noticed it and killed Zhuang Lin. Otherwise, we would have been exposed. I just don't know who is watching him. A calm and powerful male voice came from the darkness. In the shadow, a soft female voice came. Oh, no matter who is targeting Zhuang Lin, the inquiry of the black market has ended here, and we should take action. The man said, well, based on the information we have collected, we can make an overall evaluation of the prey this time. In terms of strength, his last fight was with the 3 youths of the bamboo garden, who were at the peak of the Dust Fairy, and his comprehensive strength was at the 2nd stage of the Dust Fairy. In terms of defense, after he became the Feather God, there were often guards at the peak of the Dust Fairy around him. For you and me, they are useless. In terms of help, his foundation in the Great Eastern Alliance is shallow. Except for maintaining a special relationship with the Jing deity, he has no close, strong friends. In summary, the difficulty of hunting this prey is level 2. The Netherworld faction was cautious and very rigorous. Before carrying out the task, they would make a comprehensive evaluation of the prey to determine the difficulty of the task. The difficulty was divided into 9 levels, and the first level was the easiest level, which could be completed without any effort. And the second level required a lot of effort. Suyu had the title of a god, but in fact it was easier than killing the descendants of the gods. I suggest to upgrade to level 4. In the darkness, the gentlewoman said. The man was slightly surprised. Level 4? You want to upgrade the difficulty of him to the early stage of prospective deity? Yes. The woman was very sure. There are 2 things about him that we have to pay attention to. Chapter 1156. Second, he brought Wang Yunxian back from the Tool God's cave world. We don't know what he's up to. He secretly stayed in Wang Yunxuan's mansion for 15 days. To sum up these 2 points, Suyu has a hidden part, so my suggestion is to increase the difficulty by 2 levels and list him as a prospective deity to hunt. The man pondered for a moment and said, fine, then we'll list it as the 4th level of difficulty prey. If it's only at the 4th level, you and I will have to use more than half of our strength. The woman said, the employer's bounty this time is very generous, so we can't be too cautious. Let's go. To the Crane deity's family. However, as soon as they arrived at the Crane deity's family, they received news about Suyu. He went to the Jing deity's cavern world. Standing outside the Crane deity's family, the 2 killers were lost in thought. What a coincidence! Just as they were about to make a move, Suyu went to the Jing deity's cavern world? Could it be that he was exposed? Fortunately, Suyu had a good reason to go to the Jing deity's cavern world. The son of the sword god, Bu Rui, challenged the proxy god, the feather god. At that time, there would be many gods who would come to watch. After all, the sword god was one of the top 9 powerful deities. Since his son was challenging a deity, as a father, he would naturally rush over to support him. Most of the deities who were on good terms with the sword god would come to support and cheer for the son of the sword god on account of the sword god. As the challenged party, if they couldn't invite a few gods to support them, they would definitely lose face. After understanding this, the 2 assassins reconsidered their plan. It's easy to kill Suyu in the Crane deity's cavern world, but in the Jing deity's world, I'm afraid I'll be exposed easily. As prospective gods, once we step into the Jing deity's cavern world, the Jing deity will definitely sense our aura. Killing Suyu is as difficult as ascending to heaven, the man said. After a pause, the man said, we can only kill him in the Crane deity's cavern world. The deities will sense our presence in any other cavern world, so it's not a good idea to kill him. Only when there are no deities in the Crane deity's cavern world can we take action. The gentlewoman didn't say anything. She gently frowned. This feeling of passively waiting made her instinctively feel uneasy. Could it be that he did it on purpose? A thought appeared in the woman's mind, but she quickly denied it. It was indeed a coincidence. Helpless, they had no choice but to hide and wait passively for an opportunity. This wait lasted for an entire month. In the secret chamber, the 2 assassins' faces were gloomy. Something doesn't seem right. He left for a month without returning. There is something strange about this, the man said. The woman nodded deeply. Yes. Burui challenged him. Soon, a deity will appear in the crane deity's cavern world. Our existence will definitely be noticed by the deities. If we act rashly, we will die here. So, before the competition ends, we still have to bide our time. As she spoke, the woman felt more and more passive. She was more worried about something else. Moreover, the day after the challenge, the Carnival of All Gods will be held. At that time, Suyu will go to the altar of the Great Eastern Alliance to worship the fallen deities. Most likely, he will travel with the Jing deity, and we will lose our chance to strike again. The man also felt very passive, he said. Do we need to wait until after the sacrificial god? The duration of the Carnival of All Gods could be as long as half a year, or as long as 10 years. Our employer only gave us half a year. It took us 3 months to get here and 2 months to gather information. We only have 1 month left. We don't have time to wait for him to come back from the Carnival of All Gods. The woman said slowly, so, we only have one chance to strike. The man's eyes flashed. The day after the challenge ends. The woman nodded. Yes. After the challenge ends, the deities will leave, and Suyu will have no time to go to other cavern worlds. So, when the deities leave, it will be our time to strike. After thinking for a moment, the man said, That's the only way. However, the woman frowned deeply. Don't you think that our assassination seems to be calculated step by step? First, we are forced to withdraw from the black market, unable to continue to inquire about useful information. Then, we are forced to wait for Suyu to come back. As a result, we missed the opportunity to assassinate because the challenge came. Finally, after the challenge, the Carnival of All Gods will be held, forcing us to lose all opportunities to assassinate, leaving only the gap between the challenge and the Carnival of All Gods. Intuition tells me that the only opportunity to strike was deliberately left for us. The woman looked dignified. We are in a passive position, and he has the initiative. After listening to the woman's analysis, the man also agreed and said in a deep voice, However, we have no choice. If we don't seize this opportunity, we can only announce that we have to give up this mission. The Netherworld faction has never failed to carry out a mission. If we fail, when you and I go back, the punishment waiting for us will be even more terrible. The woman looked deeply uneasy. This is what I am worried about, we have to strike. The two killers clearly noticed that Suyu had set a trap, but under Suyu's deliberate arrangement, they fell into a passive position from being the mastermind behind the scenes. Even though they knew it was a trap ahead, they had to jump in. Don't worry too much, without the deities and prospective deities, what can he do to us even if he is well prepared? The man comforted. The woman sighed. I hope so. However, I always feel that the power of this person's layout and calculation is frightening. As a prospective deity and a cold-blooded killer, she said this. Suyu stayed in the Jing deity's cavern world for a whole month. Although the Jing deity was surprised, he did not expel Suyu and allowed him to practice in the Jing deity's cavern world. For this, he also gave a lot of extra resources. With the help of these resources, Suyu broke through again and reached the stage 4 All Creations realm. It was not until the day of the challenge that it was confirmed that there were deities in the Crane deity's cavern world that he returned to the Crane deity's cavern world with the Jing deity. Outside the mansion of the Crane deity's family, it was empty and deserted. However, at the top of the cavern world, where the line of sight could not penetrate, stood 8 or 9 figures with divine light scattered in all directions. Each of them exuded divine power that was worshipped by all living beings, and their faces were hidden in the divine light, not exposed at all. One of the majestic deities with a long sword on his back looked down indifferently. The other 8 or 9 deities stood scattered around him, waiting for the challenge to begin. Suddenly, the Jing deity and Suyu arrived together. Suyu did not enter the top of the world, but appeared directly in the desolate open field, standing with his hands behind his back, waiting for Bu Rui to appear. As the deities witnessed, he and Bu Rui fought. However, Su Yu was completely relaxed, with a faint smile on his face, and slowly looked around. Wait, when the deities leave, it will be the time for the Netherworld faction to strike, right? I have prepared a big gift for you, so enjoy it. Even at this moment, Su Yu did not take the challenge in front of him seriously. Chapter 1157. Below the peak of the world, amidst the clouds, there were many descendants of deities who had come to watch the battle. There were dozens of them. Not all of them came to support Bu Rui. The majority of them were neutral. In the eyes of the neutral, the outcome of this battle was not difficult to predict. As the strongest peak mortal fairy among the descendants of the deities, Su Yu, who had an undeserved reputation, was hardly a match for him. Only Sheng Yuanxin and Yang Tai believed that Su Yu was not as simple as he seemed. In the crowd, Bu Rui held his sword in his arms and sneered at Su Yu, who was waiting for him. "Brother Bu, is it time to go down and fight? The feather god has been waiting for a long time," a neutral god descendant said. Bu Rui smiled and said, "What's the hurry? So what if he waited a little longer? Otherwise, if I make a move and he ends up in a sorry state, wouldn't that be a slap to his face?" Many descendants of the deities secretly shook their heads. Leaving Su Yu out in the open in front of so many people was even more humiliating. Looking at the cold smile on Bu Rui's face, many descendants of the deities sympathized with Su Yu. It was really hard on him. Seeing that Bu Rui was ready to continue to ignore him, Su Yu said lightly, "Nephew Rui, you have made me wait for you for so long. Is this the attitude you should have towards your elders? You don't even know basic etiquette. Could it be that the sword god never taught you how to be a person?" As soon as these words came out, the descendants of the deities were in an uproar. "Dear nephew," many descendants of neutral gods looked at Bu Rui, whose face turned stiff, red, and then blue, and couldn't help but secretly laugh. Xing Yuanxin glared at Su Yu angrily and said, "This guy is really reckless. He even brought Sword God in to scold him. If the son was ill-mannered, then of course it was the father who did not teach him well. Usually Bu Rui was used to being arrogant, so what if he was domineering? Who dared to say a word? Su Yu was the only one who spoke bluntly. At the peak of the world, Sword God's face was calm. He said indifferently, "Rui, don't wait anymore." In the clouds, Bu Rui tightly pursed his lips and gritted his teeth, saying hatefully, "Yes, father." Schwa with a leap. He floated in front of Su Yu like a phantom. He drew his sword and shouted, "Su Yu, let's begin. All right, my dear nephew, please make your move. I'll give you some pointers," Su Yu said calmly. Bu Rui, who was arrogant in his heart, was infuriated to the extreme. "Watch my sword." Undying sword body. Whoosh, a large number of swords crisscrossed, stabbing straight at Su Yu's main body from every corner. Su Yu revealed a praising smile. Not bad, the second stage of the sword path, the undying sword body. Compared with Jian Wuxing's sword principle, Bu Rui's power was undoubtedly more powerful with the help of the cultivation of the peak mortal fairy. However, in terms of perfection and subtlety, it was inferior to Jian Wuxing. The cavern world of the 9 prefectures had been suppressed by the central prefecture's king for a long time. She had been cultivating under pressure all the time. Jian Wuxing's undying sword body had been constantly pursuing precision and limits. On the other hand, even if Bu Rui had the guidance of the sword god, he could achieve great success in swordsmanship, but to reach perfection, he could only rely on his own perseverance. Bu Rui was impetuous and arrogant, so he might not be able to study his own shortcomings. Therefore, Su Yu easily identified the subtle flaws. His whole body revolved the 9 dragons' strength and shot out 9 beams of golden light consecutively, each striking the fleeting flaws. Just as he was brandishing the invincible sword body vigorously, attracting the loud cheers of the descendants of the gods, Burui staggered and was a little flustered. His swordsmanship became chaotic. Those who cheered and cheered could not help but be surprised, and their voices faded away. The lack of temperament is reflected in the swordsmanship. Nephew, you need to calm down and cultivate. You need to know that complacency is the biggest taboo, Suyu commented. Burui's face turned red. Was he really being guided by him? In his imagination, as soon as his long sword was drawn, Suyu would roll on the ground in embarrassment. Being guided by an all-creation's old monster in public, how could Burui keep his face? He roared, "The world of swordsmanship! The third realm of swordsmanship, the highest realm!" In an instant, hundreds of millions of sword lights filled the world and slashed towards Suyu. Looking at this move, Suyu's expression became a little more serious, but only a little. 10 Dragon's Body. The 10th dragon tendon that Suyu had never used before, the special dragon tendon that contained the divine blood, appeared. In his chest, near the position of the heart, a strong vein suddenly squirmed. In an instant, Suyu gained a power close to that of the gods. Although it was far inferior to the divine power, it was still ridiculously strong. In addition, the superposition of the 9 dragons' body was far from the explosive power of the 10th dragon tendon. What's more, the 10 dragons' body was the superposition of the 2 powers. Bang! 10 rays of golden light gathered and swept across the sky. Although there were hundreds of millions of sword lights, they were easily crushed by the golden light. Even as much as 10% of the remaining power of the golden light penetrated the golden light and went straight for Burui. Burui was caught off guard and was bombarded in the chest. He spat out a mouthful of blood and flew upside down. However, after all, he was a descendant of the gods. With the tip of his toes, he removed the force and stood firm. His chest was stained with blood, his clothes were tattered, and his neatly tied ink-colored hair was disheveled. His image was a far cry from his former glory and splendor. At this moment, Burui heard Suyu's faint comment. The sword light is fragile and can be destroyed with one sweep. To be honest, your third realm of swordsmanship is even worse than the second realm. Suyu said mercilessly, swordsmanship is like cultivation. Only with a solid foundation can you build a strategically advantageous building. Otherwise, if the foundation is not stable, the high-rise building will be shaky. If you can't master it, what's the point of building it? His second realm of swordsmanship was not perfect enough, so the power of the third realm was greatly reduced. Even Jian Wuxing, whose cultivation was far lower than his, exerted more power than Burui. Being criticized again, and it was still the same word, completely infuriated Burui. His self-esteem had been stimulated like never before. Suyu, you are courting death. Burui roared, and a half-red and half-yellow light was emitted from his pores, which was a sign of the blood of the gods. Burui, who was enraged, intended to use the ultimate move, the power of the descendants' blood. In an instant, a black sword shadow with a height of 100 feet appeared coldly behind Burui. Looking at the black sword shadow, Suyu sensed danger. In the black sword shadow, there was the swordsmanship inherited from the blood of the sword god. That was the god-level swordsmanship. Divine path, fallen sword. Burui had an almost ferocious look on his face. Everything was different from what he expected. No, to be precise, it was completely different. He did not teach Suyu a lesson, but was easily crushed to the ground by Suyu. Moreover, he had suffered a crushing defeat in front of all his close friends and deities. Therefore, he must defeat Suyu completely with a thunderous blow. Aren't you known as the reincarnation of the 9 dragons? Then, sacrifice your blood of the gods and let me see which god you are the reincarnation of. Burui let out a grin. He did not believe anything at all. The saying of the reincarnation of the 9 dragons was all nonsense. Saying it in public would also puncture Suyu's halo and make him more embarrassed. However, Su Yu still looked indifferent and sighed helplessly. He put his hands together, his expression solemn, and the 10 real spirit dragon veins in his body emitted extremely bright golden light. The golden light went from bright to dazzling, from dazzling to dazzling, and finally made people unable to look directly at it. Suddenly, there was a dragon's roar, and Su Yu, who was full of golden light, turned into a 10-feet-long golden dragon in front of everyone. Golden scales, long dragon whiskers, mighty dragon claws, and the breath of the divine dragon that exuded a touch of divine power. Suddenly, in the clouds, the descendants of the gods were in an uproar. They also did not believe in the reincarnation of the 9 dragons. There was no such thing as the 9 gods in the world, but Su Yu turned into a golden dragon in public, which really shocked them. Even Xing Yuanxin and Yang Tai, who were the most familiar with Su Yu, were shocked. Bu Rui was stunned for a moment, and his eyes were filled with deep shock, but he quickly reacted and urged the black sword shadow behind him to slash down. The golden dragon and the black sword, was it the dragon that destroyed the sword shadow, or the black sword that killed the dragon? Bang! The loud sound of the sky and the earth shook between heaven and earth. The dark shadow of the giant black sword was crushed by the golden dragon. The black sword shadow derived from the power of the bloodline was shattered, and Bu Rui was injured and spat out a mouthful of blood again. Defeated, completely defeated. From the beginning to the end, he was crushed by Su Yu step by step. No. I surrender! Bu Rui screamed. Slap! However, the next moment, a golden palm slammed on his face and slapped him to the ground. Then, a golden foot stepped on his chest, and the tyrannical dragon power nailed Bu Rui to the ground, making him unable to move. Only a pair of eyes were left, fierce and resentful, staring at Su Yu. What answered his eyes was Su Yu's foot, stepping on his face. Under the great force, Bu Rui even heard the sound of his skull cracking. Su Yu, who had returned to his human form, removed the effect of the dragon transformation technique, and looked down at Bu Rui. You are not convinced because you know that I will not kill you. You are not convinced because you have a backer who is the sword god. You're unconvinced, not because you have a strong and unyielding character. On the contrary, this is a display of your cowardice. You don't even dare to admit your own shortcomings, and you're not even willing to accept your own defeat. You're pinning your hopes on your father, on your backer. Hearing this, many descendants of the gods were shocked by Su Yu's arrogant behavior, but also deeply agreed. Su Yu's words hit the nail on the head for Bu Rui. People are not afraid of having shortcomings, but they are afraid of knowing the shortcomings, and are not willing to face them. Su Yu said lightly, You have the identity of the Sun Luo Law Enforcer today, the enviable cultivation of the peak mortal fairy, and the halo of the descendants of the gods. In fact, that is just your good life. You are destined to get these from birth. In fact, you did not get these things yourself, but they were given by your father. The descendants of the gods were silent. If Bu Rui was single finger before, now even the descendants of the gods were in the ranks of preaching. However, what Su Yu said was not unreasonable. They listened to it harshly, but they had to admit that what he said was the truth.